Why are you so stupid?
Maybe you should ask what I know. Facts, not theories. Then I'll wait for the next fact.
Is it important?
Not yet.
Aaron Phillips was 39, an IT support specialist for a regional healthcare network in Charlotte, North Carolina. Most people saw him as an ordinary man with an ordinary life. Around Brooklyn, Phillips, his accomplished wife and vice president of finance at one of the city's most respected investment firms. Everyone quietly assumed he simply couldn't keep up. They judged him by his aging Honda Accord, his faded polo shirts, and the way he always volunteered to clear the dinner table before anyone else stood. What they didn't know was Aaron had spent the last 8 months quietly preserving evidence that could destroy careers far more valuable than his own. Then Brooklyn hurled a full wine glass across the dining room. It exploded against his cheek, cold red wine dripping into his eyes as she shouted, "Why are you so stupid?" The room fell silent before Aaron slowly lowered his gaze to the shattered glass beneath his feet. If you're watching today, let me know where you're joining from and what your local time is right now. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. And if you love slow-burning stories where patience, truth, and justice matter more than revenge, consider subscribing. Tomorrow's story might be the one you remember the longest. The first person Aaron Phillips had ever disappointed was himself. Long before anyone in Charlotte thought of him as the quiet husband who always stood in the background, he had been the loudest believer in his own future. He had graduated from North Carolina State University with a degree in computer engineering, accepted a position at a respected cybersecurity consulting firm in Raleigh, and spent nearly a decade flying across the country solving problems most executives never even knew existed. Hospitals, insurance companies, and regional banks hired his team whenever suspicious network activity appeared. Aaron rarely stood in front of a crowd, but inside conference rooms, people listened whenever he spoke. That was where he met Brooklyn. She had been 28, confident, intelligent, and working as a financial analyst during a compliance review at a growing investment company headquartered in Charlotte. She wasn't the loudest person in the room either. She simply knew every number before anyone asked for it. Aaron admired competence. Brooklyn admired ambition. During those first months together, those two qualities seemed perfectly compatible. They spent weekends driving through the Blue Ridge Mountains, eating barbecue in small towns that barely appeared on maps, and making plans for a future that looked refreshingly ordinary. Neither of them dreamed about private clubs or luxury vacations. They talked about buying a modest house with a large backyard, adopting another dog after Aaron's aging Labrador eventually passed away, and someday raising children where neighbors still waved from their porches. The narrator could see something Aaron never noticed. Brooklyn loved where Aaron was going. Aaron loved who Brooklyn already was. Those were not the same thing. 2 years after they married, Aaron received an offer that nearly doubled his salary. The position required constant travel between Chicago, Dallas, Seattle, and Boston. It promised executive status before 40. He declined. Brooklyn stared at the email twice before asking if he was serious. "I'd rather sleep in my own bed," Aaron had answered with an easy smile. "Money isn't everything." She laughed then. Not because she disagreed, because she thought he was joking. Instead, Aaron accepted a position managing internal IT infrastructure for Carolina Regional Health Network in Charlotte. The salary was comfortable, but nowhere near what cybersecurity consulting had paid. The work ended at 5 every afternoon. Emergencies were rare. His weekends belonged to him again. To Aaron, that felt like success. To Brooklyn, it looked like surrender. The difference remained invisible at first. Then promotions arrived. Brooklyn became finance director before turning 35. Her photograph appeared in Charlotte Business Journal beside an article praising rising executives reshaping North Carolina's investment industry. She framed the article. Aaron hung it in their hallway. He was genuinely proud. He never noticed she had stopped asking about his work. As Brooklyn climbed higher inside Crescent Ridge Capital Partners, her evenings slowly filled with networking dinners, investor receptions, charity galas, and private events at country clubs Aaron had never cared to join. At first, she insisted he come. Then she started asking whether he really wanted to. Eventually, she stopped asking altogether. Aaron never complained. If she came home late, dinner waited in the refrigerator. If she forgot to buy groceries, he stopped after work. If she had meetings on Saturday mornings, he mowed the lawn before the North Carolina heat settled over the neighborhood. Their brick home in Ballantyne remained immaculate. Neighbors often saw Aaron pressure washing the driveway or trimming hedges, while Brooklyn's white BMW X5 disappeared toward another corporate event. Most people admired her. Few noticed him. That suited Aaron perfectly. Until it didn't. Brooklyn's professional success introduced her to people who measured almost everything: house size, car payments, vacation destinations, golf memberships, watch collections, wine labels. One Friday evening, Brooklyn invited several co-workers to celebrate another successful investment quarter. Aaron spent the afternoon smoking brisket in the backyard. By 6 o'clock, the dining table looked like something from a magazine. Fresh flowers, crystal glasses, handmade wooden serving boards. Aaron had polished every piece of silverware himself. The first guests arrived carrying expensive bottles of Napa Valley Cabernet. Heather Collins entered first, tall, perfectly dressed, and always speaking as though someone invisible were interviewing her. Heather worked as a luxury real estate broker and somehow knew every wealthy family within 50 miles of Charlotte. "Aaron?" she smiled. "Still driving that little Honda?" Aaron chuckled. "It still gets me where I need to go." Heather laughed harder than the joke deserved. A few minutes later came Jason Mercer. Jason was senior corporate counsel for Crescent Ridge Capital Partners. He shook Aaron's hand politely before complimenting Brooklyn on the house. Not the dinner, not Aaron's cooking. The house. Grant Holloway arrived last. Managing investment partner, perfect navy suit, perfect smile, perfectly rehearsed confidence. He handed Brooklyn flowers. He nodded at Aaron. Nothing more. The evening unfolded exactly the way Aaron expected. Investment markets, commercial developments, private equity, tax strategies, political donations. Every conversation eventually circled back to money. Aaron listened quietly while refilling water glasses and replacing empty serving bowls. Nobody asked about hospital cybersecurity. Nobody asked about technology. Nobody asked anything at all. Aaron didn't mind. He had spent years understanding that not every silence required filling. Still, he noticed things. Heather complimented Brooklyn's diamond bracelet 3 separate times. Grant mentioned buying a vacation property near Aspen before Christmas. Jason joked that anyone earning less than $200,000 a year shouldn't complain about inflation. Everyone laughed. Aaron smiled politely. Brooklyn laughed too. Not once did she look toward him. Later, while collecting empty dinner plates, Aaron walked through the kitchen carrying stacked dishes toward the sink. The dining room conversation continued behind him. Voices softened. Someone assumed he had moved farther away than he actually had. Grant lowered his voice. "We'll push the payment through Mercer Strategic Consulting." Jason answered almost immediately. "It can't appear directly." Heather asked, "Will anyone notice?" Grant took a sip of wine. "They never do." Aaron continued rinsing plates beneath running water. He didn't pause. He didn't turn around. He simply listened. Brooklyn spoke next. "Just make sure everything clears before quarter end." Nobody laughed this time. Silverware touched china. Someone changed the subject. Within seconds, they were discussing golf again. Aaron dried his hands carefully with a kitchen towel. The conversation had lasted less than 20 seconds. Most people would have forgotten it before dessert. Aaron couldn't. Not because he suspected a crime, not yet, but because something inside him, something built during years of cybersecurity investigations, recognized a familiar rhythm. People discussing legitimate business rarely lowered their voices at exactly the same moment. They didn't suddenly abandon unfinished sentences. They didn't glance towards doorways before speaking. Aaron carried the dessert plates into the dining room wearing the same calm expression he had worn all evening. Nobody noticed anything different. Brooklyn accepted another compliment. Grant poured another glass of wine. Heather laughed at another expensive joke. Aaron quietly served homemade pecan pie. Only one thought remained in his mind. For the first time in years, his instincts were telling him that something hidden had just brushed past him. And instincts Aaron had learned long ago were rarely wrong. Aaron slept less than 4 hours that night. Not because Grant Holloway's unfinished sentence proved anything, not because Brooklyn had participated in the conversation, but because his mind refused to let go of a feeling he had trusted for years. Patterns mattered. One strange detail rarely meant much. 2 deserved attention. 3 demanded patience. By 6 o'clock the next morning, Aaron was standing in his kitchen wearing jeans and an old Carolina Panthers sweatshirt, while coffee slowly filled his favorite ceramic mug. Rain tapped softly against the window overlooking their backyard. Brooklyn had already left for an early executive meeting, her BMW disappearing before sunrise. The house was unusually quiet. Aaron appreciated silence because silence made thinking easier. He replayed the conversation from dinner. "We'll push the payment through Mercer Strategic Consulting. It can't appear directly. Will anyone notice? They never do." He wasn't trying to assign guilt. He simply wanted context. After breakfast, he opened his personal laptop. Not his work computer, not Brooklyn's computer, his own. He typed one phrase into the North Carolina Secretary of State Business Registry. Mercer Strategic Consulting. The company existed. That surprised him less than its registration date. Only 18 months old. Registered in Wilmington, its listed business purpose was broad enough to include almost anything management consulting, financial advisory services, and strategic planning. Nothing illegal. Nothing unusual. Aaron leaned back. Thousands of companies looked exactly like this. He almost closed the browser. Then one small detail caught his eye. The registered mailing address. He copied it into another search. The address belonged to a commercial office building with dozens of small businesses renting mail suites, again perfectly legal. Still, Aaron opened Google Street View. The building looked almost empty. No exterior sign listed Mercer Strategic Consulting among the tenants. Perhaps it occupied a virtual office. That happened every day across America. He made no conclusions. Instead, he opened a blank notebook, not a digital spreadsheet, a paper notebook. Years in cybersecurity had taught him something valuable. Thoughts written slowly tended to remain objective. Across the first page, he wrote one sentence. Conversation overheard. Verify facts only. Nothing more. He underlined the last 3 words. Verify facts only. Aaron had investigated enough network incidents to know how dangerous assumptions could become. A person who started searching for proof of guilt usually found something that looked convincing whether it was true or not. He refused to become that person. Over the next week, life continued almost normally. Aaron drove to Carolina Regional Health Network every morning at 7:30. His office occupied the 2nd floor of an administrative building attached to the main hospital campus. Most of his work involved password resets, software updates replacing aging network switches, and helping nurses recover files they accidentally deleted. Nobody there cared about luxury cars. Nobody asked about investment firms. His coworkers appreciated that Aaron never lost his patience. If a physician called frustrated because an electronic medical record refused to load, Aaron fixed it without making anyone feel embarrassed. People trusted calm. That trust mattered more to him than recognition. Every afternoon he drove home before 5. Brooklyn usually arrived after 7. Some evenings after 9. On Wednesday, she entered carrying 2 designer shopping bags. "Promotion dinner next month," she said while hanging her coat. "I'll need something appropriate." Aaron smiled. "Congratulations." She barely looked up. "Thanks." He noticed the receipt sticking out of one shopping bag, almost $2,300. He silently folded it before throwing the bag away. Not because he cared about the money, because he disliked clutter. Friday evening, Brooklyn left for another networking event. "I'm having dinner with clients," she said while checking messages on her phone. Aaron nodded. "Drive safely." After she left, he grilled chicken, watched half a baseball game, then returned to his notebook. Mercer Strategic Consulting. He searched public corporate databases, tax records, property records, business licensing information. Everything he accessed was freely available. No passwords, no confidential files, nothing requiring special access. The company had reported consulting revenue far larger than Aaron expected from such a recently formed business. Again, not illegal. Successful firms grew quickly. He kept reading. One name appeared repeatedly: Grant Holloway. Not as owner, never directly. Instead, Grant's name surfaced through speaking engagements, investment conferences, and charitable foundations that occasionally listed Mercer Strategic Consulting among event sponsors. Interesting, not evidence. Aaron wrote another line: "Possible business relationship needs verification." He closed the notebook. 3 days later, another coincidence arrived. Brooklyn was working from home. Aaron happened to finish early after replacing network equipment at one of the health system's outpatient clinics. He entered quietly through the garage. Brooklyn sat upstairs inside the home office participating in a video conference. Her office door remained partially open. Aaron had absolutely no intention of interrupting. He walked toward the kitchen. As he passed the hallway, he heard Brooklyn say one sentence. "Just send the revised invoice before finance closes Friday." Perfectly ordinary. Invoices happened every day. Aaron continued walking. Then Brooklyn excused herself from the meeting to answer another call. She left her office. Aaron remained downstairs. Several minutes later, she rushed outside after realizing a package had been delivered to the front porch. Her office remained empty. Aaron carried laundry upstairs. As he passed the open doorway, something appeared on the large monitor sitting atop her desk. An email remained open. He never stepped inside. He never touched the keyboard. He never reached for the mouse. The screen was visible from the hallway. Large, bold letters. Invoice revision. Below it appeared several company names. Most meant nothing. One did: Mercer Strategic Consulting. Aaron continued walking exactly as planned. He placed folded towels inside the bedroom closet. His heartbeat had become noticeably faster. Not because the email proved wrongdoing. It proved only one thing. Grant's conversation had involved a real company. Nothing else. When Brooklyn returned upstairs carrying the package, Aaron was already downstairs rinsing vegetables for dinner. She never suspected he had seen anything. Neither did he mention it. Late that evening, she fell asleep while reading financial reports on her tablet. Aaron quietly opened his notebook again. Mercer Strategic Consulting confirmed. Appears in company correspondence. No accusation. No conclusion. Just another verified fact. Saturday morning, Aaron visited the public library downtown. Not because he lacked internet access, because librarians often knew how to locate archived public information faster than search engines. A research librarian named Denise helped him access historical business filings. Within 45 minutes, Aaron discovered something unexpected. Mercer Strategic Consulting had changed registered agents twice within a single year. That wasn't common, not impossible, but unusual enough for him to write it down. He searched one of the former registered agents. Another consulting company appeared. Different name, same mailing address. Aaron frowned. Coincidence, possibly. He searched again. A third company, same address. Different registered owner. Another coincidence. He refused to connect dots that might not belong together. Instead, he copied each business name onto separate notebook pages. As he prepared to leave, Denise smiled. "Working on a family business." Aaron smiled back. "Just satisfying my curiosity." Outside afternoon sunlight reflected from Charlotte's glass office towers. Families pushed strollers through Romare Bearden Park. Street musicians played jazz near Tryon Street. The city looked completely ordinary. Aaron wondered whether ordinary places hid extraordinary stories every single day without anyone noticing. Back home, Brooklyn was preparing for another evening event. "You spend a lot of time reading lately," she observed while fastening an expensive necklace. Aaron shrugged. "I've always liked research." She laughed lightly. "You should research how to make more money." The remark was delivered almost casually. Almost. Aaron answered with the same calm voice. "I'm happy with what I have." Brooklyn shook her head as though she genuinely couldn't understand him. Then she left. Aaron watched her taillights disappear once again. Only after the garage door closed did he return to the notebook lying open on the kitchen table. Across a fresh page, he wrote one final sentence. "If the facts continue repeating, this stops being coincidence." Then he closed the notebook unaware that the next piece of information would change everything he believed this investigation might become. The notebook stayed inside the bottom drawer of Aaron Phillips's desk. Not because he feared Brooklyn would discover it, because he wanted to keep his own curiosity disciplined. Every page contained dates, company names, addresses, and public records. Nothing speculative, nothing emotional, no accusations. He had seen too many investigations collapse because someone became convinced before the evidence existed. He refused to repeat that mistake. Nearly 2 weeks passed without anything unusual. Aaron continued helping nurses recover forgotten passwords. He fixed malfunctioning printers. He replaced aging wireless access points. He returned home before sunset almost every evening. Brooklyn, meanwhile, seemed busier than ever. Some nights she barely removed her heels before opening her laptop again. Conference calls stretched until 10. Investor dinners became routine. She talked more often about bonuses, acquisitions, and quarterly targets than she did about anything happening inside their own home, Aaron noticed. He simply chose not to complain. One Thursday evening, they attended a charity fundraiser held inside a luxury hotel overlooking downtown Charlotte. Crystal chandeliers reflected warm light across polished marble floors. Servers moved silently through the ballroom carrying trays of champagne. Every conversation sounded polished. Every smile seemed carefully practiced. Aaron adjusted the cuffs of his navy blazer. It was nearly 8 years old, still perfectly tailored, still perfectly clean. Brooklyn glanced at him. "You could have bought a new suit." Aaron smiled. "This one still fits." She sighed, almost imperceptibly. "It isn't about fitting." He understood exactly what she meant. Appearance, status, signals. He simply answered, "Maybe." Inside the ballroom, Heather Collins greeted them with her usual enthusiasm. "Brooklyn, you look incredible." Then she glanced toward Aaron. "Oh, you wore that suit again." The remark floated through the conversation lightly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Aaron smiled politely. "It saves me from making difficult fashion decisions." Several people laughed. Heather laughed loudest. Brooklyn smiled without correcting her friend. The evening continued. Aaron spoke with a retired school principal about volunteer programs. He spent 10 minutes discussing barbecue recipes with a hospital administrator. Those conversations felt genuine. Across the ballroom, Brooklyn circulated among executives whose discussions revolved around investment funds and private equity. She looked comfortable there, perhaps more comfortable than she had ever looked beside him. Later, while waiting near the refreshment table, Aaron overheard Jason Mercer speaking with another attorney. "Compliance review next month. Everything's already been reorganized. Legal won't have any problems. Again, perfectly ordinary. Companies prepared for compliance reviews all the time. Still, Aaron recognized another familiar pattern. People around Crescent Ridge Capital Partners seemed unusually careful whenever compliance became part of the conversation. Not frightened, careful. There was a difference. Aaron returned home shortly after 10. Brooklyn stayed another hour. He changed into sweatpants and made himself tea before sitting on the back porch. Summer insects filled the humid North Carolina night with steady noise. His notebook rested unopened beside him. He stared into the darkness for nearly 20 minutes. Finally, he spoke aloud. Either I'm imagining patterns. He stopped. Or something bigger is happening. The next morning, he drove to work as usual. Around 11, an unexpected email arrived. Subject, Daniel Brooks. Aaron smiled before opening it. Daniel had once been one of the sharpest incident response specialists Aaron had ever worked with. Years earlier, they had investigated ransomware attacks against regional hospitals together. Since then, Daniel had accepted a position with Homeland Security Investigations, specializing in cyber-enabled financial crimes. They rarely spoke. When they did, it usually meant one of them wanted professional advice. The email contained only one sentence. In Charlotte next week. Lunch. Aaron answered almost immediately. Absolutely. Tuesday work. Tuesday arrived with clear skies. Daniel looked almost unchanged. Slightly more gray hair, slightly heavier around the shoulders. Otherwise identical. They met at a quiet barbecue restaurant several miles from downtown. No expensive steakhouse, no private club. Just smoked brisket sweet tea and wooden picnic tables. After catching up on old co-workers, Daniel leaned back. You look happy. Aaron considered the question. Why? I've got a peaceful life. Daniel nodded. Peace is underrated. For several minutes, they discussed cybersecurity trends, artificial intelligence, hospital ransomware, cloud security. Aaron felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Professional conversation. Daniel still respected his judgment. Eventually, Daniel noticed Aaron becoming quieter. You've got something on your mind. Aaron hesitated. He chose his next words carefully. Hypothetically. Daniel laughed. It's never hypothetical. Aaron smiled. Let's say someone overhears several business conversations that sound unusual. Daniel waited. No confidential access, Aaron continued. No hacking, no stolen documents, just observations. What kind of observations? Aaron described them without naming Brooklyn, or Grant, or Jason. He spoke only about publicly available information, repeated company names, lowered voices, and business records that raised questions without proving anything. Daniel listened without interrupting. When Aaron finished, Daniel wiped barbecue sauce from his hands before speaking. Do you know the biggest mistake civilians make? Aaron shook his head. They decide there's already a crime. Aaron nodded slowly. I don't want to do that. I know. Daniel folded his arms. So, here's my advice. Aaron waited. Don't investigate people. The sentence surprised him. Daniel continued. Investigate facts. Aaron remained silent. If facts eventually point toward wrongdoing, professionals handle the rest. What if they don't? Then you've protected yourself from accusing innocent people. Aaron appreciated the answer. It sounded exactly like something he would have told someone else years earlier. Daniel leaned forward. One more thing. Aaron looked up. If you're connected personally to anyone involved... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Aaron understood. Emotion distorted judgment. Personal relationships complicated everything. Daniel spoke carefully. Never confront anyone. Aaron nodded. I wasn't planning to. Good. Daniel took another sip of tea. If something is actually happening, confrontation gives people time to destroy records, coordinate stories, or make innocent explanations disappear. Aaron wrote that sentence into his memory. Never confront. The lunch ended shortly afterward. Before leaving, Daniel placed one hand on Aaron's shoulder. You were always patient. Aaron smiled. Sometimes too patient. Daniel shook his head. No. His expression became serious. Patience is usually what separates evidence from suspicion. Aaron watched Daniel drive away. He remained in the parking lot another 5 minutes. His instincts felt calmer now. Not because he had answers. Because someone he trusted had reminded him how investigations were supposed to begin. Facts first. Conclusions later. That evening, Aaron returned home to find Brooklyn preparing for another corporate dinner. She barely looked away from the mirror. I'm going to be late, I figured. She adjusted an expensive necklace. You've been quiet lately. Aaron smiled faintly. I've always been quiet. She laughed. No. She fastened her earrings. You've become invisible. The words landed more heavily than she intended. Perhaps she didn't even realize she had spoken them. Aaron looked at her for several seconds. Then he answered softly. I don't think invisible people bother anyone. Brooklyn shrugged. They don't. She picked up her purse. That's kind of the point. The front door closed behind her. Silence returned to the house. Aaron stood alone in the living room, replaying her words. Invisible. Years ago, the comment might have hurt. Now it simply sounded revealing. Brooklyn measured worth by visibility, recognition, influence, attention. Aaron measured worth differently. Integrity, reliability, truth. He walked into his office and opened the notebook once more. This time he added a new heading, Professional Guidance. Below it he wrote only 3 lines. Investigate facts. Never confront, preserve chronology. He closed the notebook. He had no idea those 3 rules would soon become the foundation for everything that followed. 3 weeks passed before Aaron Phillips found the first piece of information that refused to fit anywhere. It appeared on an ordinary Tuesday evening while he was reviewing publicly available corporate filings after dinner. Brooklyn had flown to Atlanta for a 2-day investor conference. The house felt unusually peaceful. Rain drifted across the windows while soft jazz played from an old speaker in the kitchen. Aaron wasn't searching for evidence anymore. At least that was what he kept telling himself. He was searching for consistency. There was an important difference. Consistency either existed or it didn't. Truth usually left a pattern. Lies almost always left several. He opened the North Carolina Business Registry again, then the Delaware Corporate Registry. Several investment companies operated across multiple states. Perfectly normal. Many large firms preferred Delaware because of its corporate laws. Aaron followed another company name that had appeared beside Mercer Strategic Consulting in one of the public filings, Hollow Creek Advisory. The name sounded respectable, professional, almost intentionally forgettable. The business had existed for only 22 months. Again, nothing unusual. Then Aaron noticed something familiar. The mailing address. Exactly the same commercial office building, different suite number, different registered agent, same building. He leaned back in his chair. Coincidence remained possible. Office buildings often hosted dozens of unrelated businesses. Still, he wrote another entry. Hollow Creek Advisory, same building, no conclusion. He continued reading. Another consulting company surfaced through archived state filings. Blue Horizon Management, same building, another. Silver Oak Business Services, same building. Aaron stared at the screen. His cybersecurity career had taught him one lesson that applied far beyond computers. One repeated coincidence deserved attention. 5 deserved explanation. He closed every browser tab, then reopened them from the beginning. Fresh eyes often exposed mistakes. After nearly an hour, his notes remained unchanged. The companies really did share nearly identical mailing addresses despite appearing unrelated. He refused to guess why. The next afternoon, Aaron finished work early after helping install new network equipment inside a pediatric clinic. Driving home, he decided to stop for groceries. As he walked through the produce section, he heard someone call his name. "Aaron?" He turned. Rebecca Lawson stood beside a shopping cart filled with vegetables and bottled sparkling water. Nearly 15 years had passed since law school graduation. Rebecca had never practiced corporate law back then. She had always preferred litigation. Today, she operated her own civil litigation firm in Charlotte, handling commercial disputes, fraud cases, and complex divorces. Aaron smiled. "It's been forever." Rebecca laughed. "You somehow look exactly the same." "So do you." She rolled her eyes. "You're a terrible liar." They spent several minutes catching up. Families, careers, old classmates. Finally, Rebecca asked, "Still solving impossible computer problems?" "Mostly password resets these days." She laughed. "That sounds less exciting." "It pays the bills. And keeps you out of court." Aaron smiled. "I've always preferred it that way." Rebecca nodded thoughtfully. "You know," she paused, "I actually miss working with technical people." Aaron looked curious. "Why?" "They don't exaggerate." He laughed quietly. "That's not always true." "No," Rebecca replied, "but they usually understand documentation." The word lingered in Aaron's mind. Documentation. Rebecca continued. "I spend half my career explaining to clients that memories aren't nearly as reliable as records." Aaron recognized another familiar lesson: facts, chronology, documentation. Before they left, Rebecca handed him a business card. "Ins. If you ever need legal advice." Aaron accepted it politely. "I hope I never do." "So do I." She smiled warmly. "But life surprises people." Back home, Aaron placed the business card inside the same notebook drawer where his investigation notes remained hidden. He wasn't planning to call. Still, he appreciated knowing someone trustworthy existed if questions ever became too complicated. Friday evening, Brooklyn returned from Atlanta. She seemed unusually cheerful. "The conference went perfectly." "I'm glad. We may announce a major acquisition this quarter." "Congratulations." She kissed his cheek distractedly while reading messages on her phone. Aaron noticed another expensive handbag resting beside her suitcase. He noticed because it matched none of the others, not because he cared. Brooklyn disappeared upstairs. An hour later, she called down. "Aaron?" "Yeah? Can you print something?" "Of course." She emailed a presentation to the home printer. Aaron opened the document only long enough to verify it printed correctly. 23 pages, mostly financial charts. Nothing unusual. As the printer finished, one final page remained. Blank, except for a company logo. Mercer Strategic Consulting. Aaron frowned. He looked away immediately. He had already printed the document. There was no reason to continue reading. Brooklyn walked downstairs moments later. "Thanks." She collected the pages. Aaron handed them over without comment. She never realized the final page had briefly remained visible. Aaron returned to washing dishes. Inside his thoughts, another small piece quietly slid into place. Mercer Strategic Consulting again. Not proof, just repetition. Saturday morning, Aaron drove to the public library once more. Denise recognized him immediately. "Back to satisfy your curiosity." Aaron smiled. "I guess I am." She guided him toward archived business periodicals unavailable through ordinary search engines. Hours passed. Most articles contained nothing useful. Corporate award ceremonies, executive promotions, community donations. Then Aaron found a regional business magazine profiling Crescent Ridge Capital Partners from 3 years earlier. The accompanying photograph included Grant Holloway, Brooklyn, several executives, and one man Aaron had never seen before. Beneath the image appeared the caption, "Strategic Advisor Nathan Caldwell." Aaron searched the name. Nathan Caldwell no longer worked there. Public announcements described his departure as retirement. Curious, Aaron searched further. Nathan had quietly accepted a board position with Mercer Strategic Consulting. Aaron sat motionless. Again, the same company. He wrote carefully. Nathan Caldwell, former Crescent Ridge executive, later joined Mercer. No assumptions, only chronology. As he packed his notebook, Denise approached. "Find what you were looking for." Aaron smiled. "I found another question." She laughed. "Sometimes that's how research works." Driving home through uptown Charlotte, Aaron replayed the past month. A conversation, a company, another company, repeated addresses, repeated names, repeated appearances. None of it established wrongdoing, but each discovery independently confirmed something else. The people surrounding Brooklyn shared professional relationships extending far beyond what casual conversation suggested. Late Sunday afternoon, Aaron sat on the backyard patio trimming rose bushes while Brooklyn spoke with Heather Collins over speakerphone inside the kitchen. He wasn't trying to listen. The sliding door happened to remain partially open. Heather laughed loudly. "Grant says compliance shouldn't be a problem," Brooklyn answered. "It won't." "What about Nathan? He's already handled." Aaron stopped clipping the rose bush. The conversation continued. "I still think we're worrying too much," Heather said. Brooklyn responded almost immediately. "Careful people stay successful." Silence followed. Then Heather changed the subject to vacation plans. Aaron resumed trimming roses. The words themselves meant nothing. People discussed compliance constantly in business. But once again, compliance. Nathan, Grant. The same names, the same circle. Sunday evening, Aaron opened his notebook beneath the warm light of his desk lamp. For nearly 10 minutes, he simply stared at the earlier pages. Then he turned to a clean sheet. Instead of writing company names, he drew a simple timeline. Grant, Brooklyn, Jason, Nathan, Mercer Strategic Consulting, Hollow Creek Advisory, shared addresses, repeated conversations, no arrows, no theories, just dates. When he finished, the page looked surprisingly ordinary. That comforted him. If the timeline ever required dramatic explanations, it probably wasn't reliable. Truth often appeared boring before it became important. Aaron closed the notebook. His phone vibrated. A text from Daniel Brooks. "Remember something. Evidence doesn't become stronger because you believe it. It becomes stronger because someone else can verify it." Aaron read the message twice, then a third time. He smiled. Daniel had no idea how perfectly timed those words were. Aaron placed the phone on his desk. Outside, the evening settled quietly over their neighborhood. Inside the house, Brooklyn laughed while watching a financial news program discussing mergers and market confidence. She sounded relaxed, completely unaware that Aaron had begun organizing every verified fact into a chronological record. He still hoped it would all lead to an innocent explanation. He genuinely wanted that outcome, because if it didn't, the people sitting around their own dining table might be hiding far more than careless business conversations. Aaron Phillips had never believed that truth announced itself dramatically. It didn't arrive with flashing lights. It didn't reveal itself through a single shocking discovery. Truth usually accumulated quietly. One receipt, one email, one conversation, one document, individually meaningless. Together, impossible to ignore. That belief had guided nearly every cybersecurity investigation he had worked during his previous career. Now it guided something far more personal. On Monday morning, Aaron arrived at Carolina Regional Health Network shortly before 7:30. The hospital was already alive. Nurses hurried through the corridors carrying coffee cups. Doctors reviewed patient charts before morning rounds. Maintenance crews polished the lobby floors. Aaron enjoyed the predictability. Technology either worked or it didn't. Problems usually had logical explanations. Human behavior was far less dependable. Around 10 that morning, his manager stopped by his office. "Got a favor?" Aaron looked up. "Sure." The finance department lost access to archived invoice records from 3 years ago. "I'll take a look." 20 minutes later, Aaron found himself inside the administrative finance building. He restored database permissions within 15 minutes. The issue turned out to be nothing more than an incorrect security group assignment. As he prepared to leave, one of the accounting supervisors smiled. "You just saved us hours." Aaron shrugged. "It was an easy fix." She laughed. "You always say that." Aaron packed his laptop. While waiting for the elevator, he noticed several framed posters describing internal compliance procedures, document retention, financial transparency, audit preparation. He smiled faintly. Every large organization relied upon records. Records protected honest people. Records exposed dishonest ones. That simple principle remained unchanged whether the organization was a hospital, a bank, or an investment company. Driving home that afternoon, Aaron found himself thinking less about Mercer Strategic Consulting and more about documentation itself. He pulled into his driveway. Brooklyn's BMW was already parked inside the garage. She rarely arrived home before him. Inside the kitchen, she stood talking on her phone. Her voice immediately softened when she noticed him. "I'll call you back." She ended the conversation. "You're home early." "So are you." She forced a smile. "Board meeting was canceled." Aaron nodded. "No complaints from me." She walked toward the refrigerator. "You've been unusually cheerful lately." Aaron looked surprised. "Have I? It's strange." She removed bottled water. "You don't seem interested in what I'm doing anymore." Aaron considered that carefully. "I've always trusted you to handle your work." Brooklyn studied him for several seconds. Then she smiled. "I guess that's true." The conversation ended there. But Aaron noticed something. She had expected questions. He hadn't asked any. That evening, they ate dinner together for the first time in nearly a week. Roasted chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes. The television remained off. Brooklyn spent most of dinner replying to emails between bites. Finally, she sighed. "I swear these consultants create more work than they solve." Aaron looked up. "Consultants?" She nodded absent-mindedly. "Outside firms?" "Busy quarter. The busiest." She returned to her phone. Aaron resisted the temptation to ask which consulting firms she meant. Curiosity without necessity became interrogation. Daniel's advice returned immediately. Never confront, never lead, just observe. After dinner, Brooklyn excused herself for another conference call upstairs. Aaron cleaned the kitchen. When he finished, he carried the trash outside. Their next-door neighbor, Frank Miller, happened to be watering flowers. Frank had lived on the street for almost 20 years, retired Air Force, friendly, observant. "Evening, Aaron?" "Evening." Frank rested one arm on the fence. "Brooklyn sure travels a lot these days." Aaron smiled politely. "Comes with the job." Frank nodded. "My daughter works in banking." He chuckled. "Sometimes I think executives spend more time at airports than offices." Aaron laughed. "Probably true." Frank looked toward Brooklyn's parked BMW. "She's successful. She works hard. You too." Aaron shrugged. "My job's less exciting." Frank shook his head. "You know what I like about you?" Aaron looked puzzled. "You always answer the question someone asked." Aaron smiled. I never thought about it. Most people answer the question they wish had been asked. Aaron found that observation unexpectedly profound. Later that night, he wrote it inside the back cover of his notebook. Answer the actual question. Not the preferred one. It wasn't part of the investigation. It was simply good advice. Wednesday afternoon, Aaron received another surprise. Rebecca Lawson called. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all. I remembered something after we ran into each other. Aaron listened. You mentioned researching business structures. I did. Completely unrelated to any clients, Rebecca continued carefully. But if you're ever trying to understand financial relationships, don't start with ownership. Aaron frowned slightly. Where should someone start? Control. She continued before Aaron could respond. Ownership can be hidden. Management changes. Mailing addresses change. But decision-making usually leaves consistent fingerprints. Aaron remained silent. Rebecca laughed. I sound like I'm giving a lecture. I appreciate it. I'm only saying this because people often misunderstand corporate records. What do you mean? They spend months chasing who owns something. And they should have been asking who benefits. The sentence remained with Aaron long after the call ended. Who benefits, not who owns. That evening, Aaron reopened every page of his notebook. For the first time, he noticed something he had overlooked. Every conversation involving Mercer Strategic Consulting had appeared immediately before discussions about quarterly reporting, compliance, invoices, consulting, quarter-end, board meetings, individually ordinary, repeated together, interesting. Still not evidence. He refused to cross that line. Thursday brought another coincidence. Aaron received a LinkedIn notification while eating lunch. Nathan Caldwell had updated his professional profile. Aaron almost ignored it. Instead, he clicked. Nathan now described himself as Executive Strategic Advisor. No company name appeared beside the title. Curious. Aaron searched publicly available conference schedules. 2 upcoming investment conferences listed Nathan as a keynote speaker. Sponsored by Mercer Strategic Consulting. Again, the same name. Aaron copied nothing. Instead, he bookmarked the conference pages. Public information remained public. Friday evening, Brooklyn hosted another small gathering at their home. This time only 4 guests attended. Grant Holloway, Heather Collins, Jason Mercer, Olivia Bennett. Aaron prepared appetizers before quietly stepping back. The atmosphere felt different from previous dinners. Less relaxed, more focused. Business folders rested beside expensive wine glasses. At one point, Grant asked Brooklyn, "Do we have the revised package?" Brooklyn nodded. "In my office," Jason added quietly. "Let's keep paper copies limited." Aaron continued arranging cheese plates as though he hadn't heard anything. Paper copies limited. An unusual phrase. Not suspicious. Simply unusual. Several minutes later, Brooklyn walked upstairs with Grant. Jason remained downstairs answering a phone call. Heather wandered onto the patio. Olivia helped Aaron refill serving dishes. She smiled kindly. "You always make these evenings look effortless." Aaron chuckled. "Cooking's easier than finance." Olivia laughed. "You'd be surprised." Her expression softened. "I miss when these dinners were actually fun." Aaron looked at her. "What changed?" She hesitated, then smiled politely. "Success." Before Aaron could respond, Grant and Brooklyn returned downstairs. The conversation immediately shifted toward vacation homes in Florida. An hour later, the guests departed. Brooklyn looked exhausted. "I'm going to bed." Aaron kissed her forehead. "Good night." After she disappeared upstairs, Aaron walked slowly through the dining room collecting empty glasses. One folded sheet of paper rested beneath a chair. Probably dropped accidentally. He picked it up automatically. without unfolding it. He intended to place it on the dining table for Brooklyn to find in the morning. As he laid it down, the top corner slipped open. Only one line became visible. Invoice Reconciliation Summary, Mercer Strategic Consulting. Aaron immediately folded it shut again. He never read another word. He placed it exactly where Brooklyn would notice it first thing in the morning. Then he turned off the dining room lights. Upstairs, Brooklyn slept peacefully. Downstairs, Aaron stood alone in the dark kitchen. He wasn't excited. He wasn't angry. He wasn't afraid. He was becoming something far more dangerous. Patient. Because every week brought another verified fact, and patient people rarely rushed toward conclusions. They waited until the conclusions walked toward them. By the beginning of October, Aaron Phillips had developed a routine that required almost no effort. He no longer searched every evening. He no longer revisited the same corporate databases repeatedly. Instead, he dedicated 1 hour every Saturday morning to reviewing only new, publicly available information. The discipline mattered. An investigation driven by obsession eventually became unreliable. An investigation guided by patience remained objective. At 7 o'clock each Saturday, Aaron brewed fresh coffee, opened his notebook, reviewed the previous week's entries, and asked himself one question: what new fact exists today that did not exist last week? If the answer was nothing, he closed the notebook. That particular Saturday began exactly that way. Outside, autumn had finally reached Charlotte. Golden leaves drifted across quiet sidewalks. The neighborhood remained unusually peaceful. Brooklyn had left before sunrise for another executive retreat in Asheville. Aaron sat alone in the kitchen with his laptop. The first 30 minutes produced nothing. Business registries showed no significant changes. Corporate announcements remained ordinary. Conference schedules looked identical to the week before. Aaron almost closed the computer. Then one press release caught his attention, not because of its content, because of one familiar name: Nathan Caldwell. The announcement described him as participating in a financial ethics panel sponsored by a regional business association. Aaron clicked. The event agenda listed every speaker's biography. Nathan's biography mentioned more consulting experience than Aaron remembered. He opened another browser tab. Archived versions of Nathan's professional profile differed slightly from the current one. Certain dates had changed, only by a few months. Not enough to prove anything, but enough to notice. Aaron wrote another note. Biography revised. Timeline adjusted. Reason unknown. No conclusion. He closed the browser. The notebook remained remarkably ordinary. No dramatic discoveries. No shocking revelations. Just another tiny inconsistency. Exactly the kind investigators learned never to ignore. Later that afternoon, Aaron drove to visit his older sister, Melissa. She lived 40 minutes outside Charlotte with her husband and 2 teenage sons. Family gatherings always reminded Aaron that life existed beyond work and quiet investigations. His nephews immediately challenged him to a basketball game in the driveway. Aaron lost badly, on purpose. Or at least that was what the boys insisted. Melissa laughed as everyone gathered around the backyard grill. "You've always been terrible at pretending." Aaron smiled. "I'm getting older." "No." She handed him a plate. "You're getting quieter." Aaron accepted the hamburger. "I've always been quiet." Melissa looked at him knowingly. "You've also always carried something around in your head." Aaron looked toward the backyard instead of answering. His sister had known him longer than anyone. She recognized when he was thinking through a problem. She simply couldn't identify the problem itself. During dinner, Melissa suddenly asked, "How's Brooklyn?" "Busy. Still traveling, almost every week." Melissa nodded slowly. "Are you two doing okay?" Aaron answered honestly. "We're different people than we used to be." Melissa waited. Aaron said nothing more. She respected that. Instead, she changed the conversation toward their parents' upcoming anniversary. Driving home after sunset, Aaron reflected on her question. Were they doing okay? He wasn't sure anymore. Brooklyn wasn't cruel every day. She wasn't angry all the time. In many ways, she remained thoughtful. She remembered birthdays. She donated generously to charities. She worked incredibly hard. Yet somewhere along the way, ambition had become the language she spoke most fluently. Everything became measurable. Income, recognition, influence, status. Aaron wondered whether she even realized the change. Sunday evening, Brooklyn returned from Asheville looking unusually energized. The retreat was productive. I'm glad. She placed several folders on the dining room table. We're getting close. Aaron looked up. Close to what? She smiled. You'll hear about it when everyone else does. Then she laughed. I almost forgot. She reached into her bag and handed Aaron a small box. I brought you something. Inside rested a handcrafted wooden bookmark from a local artisan market. Aaron smiled genuinely. It's beautiful. I figured you'd actually use it. I will. For a brief moment, they looked at each other exactly the way they once had years earlier. Without tension, without distance. Just husband and wife sharing a quiet evening. Aaron almost hated what came next. Brooklyn's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. I have to take this. She stepped outside. The conversation lasted nearly 20 minutes. Aaron wasn't trying to overhear. The kitchen window remained open. Only fragments reached him. Tuesday. Before the auditors. Grant already approved. Mercer, silence. Don't email that. Aaron slowly closed the window. He intentionally blocked the remaining conversation. He had already heard enough to know another familiar pattern had appeared. When Brooklyn returned inside, she looked tired. Everything okay? She forced a smile. Just work. Aaron nodded. I figured. Neither of them mentioned the phone call again. Tuesday afternoon, another coincidence arrived. Daniel Brooks sent Aaron a short message. Passing through Charlotte Thursday. Coffee. Aaron immediately agreed. They met inside a quiet cafe near Freedom Park. Unlike their previous lunch, this meeting felt less nostalgic. Daniel looked preoccupied. After exchanging greetings, he lowered his voice. I've got a question. Aaron listened. Purely hypothetical. Aaron smiled. So now you're using hypotheticals. Daniel laughed. I learned from you. He stirred his coffee before continuing. If someone notices recurring financial relationships that still don't prove misconduct. Aaron nodded. When should they stop collecting facts? Daniel answered without hesitation. When additional facts stop changing the picture. Aaron considered that. So, quantity isn't the point. Exactly. Daniel leaned back. Imagine building a puzzle. You don't need every piece. You need enough pieces that only one picture remains possible. Aaron remained silent. Daniel continued. But here's the important part. You don't force pieces together. Aaron smiled faintly. Otherwise you build the wrong picture. Daniel pointed toward him. Exactly. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Finally, Daniel asked, Anything changing? Aaron chose his words carefully. I keep finding the same names. The same companies. The same timing. No actual proof. Daniel nodded approvingly. Good. Aaron looked surprised. Good. Yes. If you still don't have proof, then don't pretend you do. Aaron appreciated the reminder. It sounded simple, yet many investigators failed precisely there. They became emotionally committed before becoming factually certain. Thursday evening, Aaron reorganized his notebook. Not because it had grown messy, because it had grown large. He divided it into sections. People, companies, dates, public statements, observed conversations, independent verification. Each section contained only facts. Every entry included either a date or a source. If Aaron couldn't identify the source, he removed the note entirely. 3 pages disappeared. They had relied too heavily on memory. He wasn't willing to trust memory alone. By midnight, the notebook had become significantly shorter. Ironically, it also felt stronger. Friday morning, while leaving for work, Aaron noticed Brooklyn standing unusually still beside her car. She stared at her phone without moving. Her expression carried something unfamiliar. Not confidence, not irritation. Concern. She didn't notice Aaron approaching. "You okay?" She looked up quickly. "Oh." She locked her screen. "Yeah." "You sure?" "Just dealing with work." Aaron nodded. "I hope it gets easier." Brooklyn managed a tired smile. "I don't." He looked puzzled. "The easy quarters are over." She climbed into her BMW. As she drove away, Aaron remained in the driveway a moment longer. That brief expression lingered in his thoughts. For months, Brooklyn had projected certainty. Today, he had seen uncertainty. Only for a second. But it had been real. That evening, Aaron returned home before she did. He opened the notebook one final time before dinner. At the bottom of the newest page, he wrote another personal reminder. People reveal more during ordinary moments than dramatic ones. He underlined the sentence once. Then he closed the notebook. Outside, the wind carried another wave of autumn leaves across the yard. Inside the quiet house, Aaron sensed something subtle changing. Not in the evidence, not in the documents, not even in the repeating names. The change was happening inside Brooklyn herself. For the first time since this quiet investigation had begun, confidence no longer appeared to come naturally to her, and Aaron suspected that whatever had disturbed her this morning had not happened by accident. The following Monday began like dozens before it. Aaron Phillips unlocked his office at the hospital a few minutes before 8. He powered on his workstation, reviewed overnight support tickets, and walked through the routine network health reports that had become almost automatic after years in information technology. Nothing unusual appeared. No server outages, no suspicious login attempts, no failed backups. His workday promised to be pleasantly ordinary. Aaron preferred ordinary. Ordinary gave people room to think. Around mid-morning, his supervisor stopped outside the office. "You have a minute." "Always." "We're hosting an external compliance audit next month." Aaron nodded. "IT usually supports the auditors." "Exactly." His supervisor handed him a preliminary checklist. "We need archived access logs ready." "No problem." As Aaron scanned the document, one sentence caught his attention. "Every access must be independently verifiable." He almost smiled. Independent verification. Different profession. Same principle. Whether someone investigated hospital security or financial reporting, reliable conclusions depended on records that another person could confirm. Opinion never survived an audit. Documentation usually did. The rest of the workday passed quietly. Aaron restored an employee's encrypted laptop, replaced 2 failing network switches, and helped a physician recover accidentally deleted presentation files. Every task reinforced the same lesson. Technology remembered, people forgot. That evening after dinner, Brooklyn surprised him. "I'm taking Friday off." Aaron looked up from loading the dishwasher. "You are?" "I haven't had an actual day off in months." "That sounds healthy," she smiled. "I thought maybe we'd drive to the mountains." Aaron genuinely appreciated the suggestion. "I'd like that." For a brief moment, the distance between them seemed smaller. Brooklyn even laughed while remembering an old hiking trip from the early years of their marriage. "We got completely lost." Aaron chuckled. "We weren't lost." "You said that then too." "We eventually found the trail." After 4 hours. They laughed together. It felt natural, comfortable. Aaron wondered whether the pressure at work had simply overwhelmed her recently. Perhaps things would improve. Perhaps every strange conversation he had overheard truly possessed an innocent explanation. He wanted that possibility more than anyone. Wednesday afternoon, another unexpected encounter changed his thinking. Aaron stopped at a small cafe near the hospital after work. The line moved slowly. As he waited, he noticed Olivia Bennett sitting alone near the window. She looked different outside executive dinners, less polished, less guarded, more tired. She noticed him first. "Aaron." He smiled politely. "Mind if I say hello?" "Please." He carried his coffee over. They talked about ordinary subjects: traffic, autumn weather, college football. Nothing connected to Brooklyn's company. Eventually, Olivia stared through the window for several seconds. "You know," she spoke quietly, "I envy your job." Aaron looked surprised. "My job?" "Yes." She smiled faintly. "When you fix something, you know it's fixed." "Usually." "In finance," she stopped. "Sometimes problems never actually disappear." Aaron waited. She seemed ready to continue. Instead, she changed the subject. "Brooklyn works incredibly hard." "She does. You should tell her to rest." "I've tried." Olivia laughed softly. "I figured." When Aaron stood to leave, Olivia said something unexpected. "Take care of yourself." "I always do." She shook her head gently. "No. I mean, really take care of yourself." Aaron studied her expression. Concern. Not fear, not guilt. Concern. Before he could ask another question, Olivia collected her purse. "I should go." She smiled politely. "It was nice seeing you." Watching her leave, Aaron resisted every instinct to interpret her words. Concern alone proved nothing. People often worried about friends. Still, he wrote the conversation into his notebook that evening, exactly as it had occurred. Nothing more, nothing less. Thursday evening, Aaron found Brooklyn sitting alone on the back patio. No phone, no laptop, no conference call. She simply watched the sunset. Aaron joined her without speaking. Several quiet minutes passed. Finally, Brooklyn broke the silence. "Do you ever miss your consulting career?" Aaron answered honestly. "Sometimes. You could probably earn twice what you make now." "Probably." "So why don't you—" Aaron looked across the backyard. "I sleep well." Brooklyn laughed quietly. "That's your answer." "It's part of it." She folded her arms. "I don't understand you." Aaron smiled gently. "I know." She looked at him with genuine curiosity. "Most people want more." Aaron considered her words carefully. "I wanted enough." "That's different." Brooklyn didn't argue. Instead, she stared toward the fading sunlight. Aaron found himself remembering the woman he had married. Ambitious, kind, funny, determined. Somewhere along the years, ambition had remained. The other qualities had slowly become less visible. He wondered if they were truly gone, or simply buried beneath years of pressure. Friday morning, they drove toward the Blue Ridge Mountains exactly as planned. Neither mentioned work during the first hour. They stopped at a roadside bakery, shared coffee, walked through a small mountain town. For several hours, life resembled what it once had been. Brooklyn even slipped her hand into Aaron's while they crossed a wooden bridge overlooking a quiet stream. "I've missed this." "So have I." She looked at him. "We should do it more often." "I'd like that." Aaron meant every word. After lunch, they continued driving through winding mountain roads lined with orange and crimson trees. Then Brooklyn's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Her smile disappeared. "I'm sorry." Aaron nodded. "Go ahead." She answered immediately. "What happened?" Silence. Then another pause. Aaron kept his eyes on the road. No. Don't discuss it there. I'll be back tonight. She ended the call. The peaceful atmosphere vanished. I thought you took today off. I did. What changed? Brooklyn stared out the passenger window. There was an unexpected issue. Aaron waited. She offered nothing more. By late afternoon, they returned to Charlotte instead of spending the evening in the mountains. Neither complained. Neither argued. The drive home remained unusually quiet. That night, Brooklyn locked herself inside the home office for almost 3 hours. Aaron never interrupted. Instead, he organized old family photographs in the living room. One picture caught his attention. Their wedding day. Brooklyn laughing without reservation. Aaron smiling beside her. Neither one carried titles. Neither one cared about executive promotions. Neither one imagined how different life would eventually become. He carefully returned the photograph to its album. Near midnight, Brooklyn finally emerged. She looked exhausted. Were you waiting up? I couldn't sleep. She hesitated, then sat beside him. For nearly a minute, neither spoke. Finally, she asked a question Aaron never expected. Do you trust me? Aaron looked directly into her eyes. He answered with complete honesty. I want to. Brooklyn lowered her gaze. Not angry, not defensive, simply quiet. She nodded once, then whispered almost to herself, I wish things were simpler. Aaron watched her disappear upstairs. Those words remained in the silent living room long after she was gone. Not because they revealed guilt. They didn't. Not because they proved innocence. They couldn't. They mattered because they were the first words Brooklyn had spoken in months that sounded less like an executive and more like a person carrying a burden. Aaron opened his notebook one final time before going to bed. Instead of adding another company name or another business conversation, he wrote only a single sentence. Today, for the first time, Brooklyn sounded tired of whatever she has been protecting. Then he paused. He crossed out the final 3 words. Protecting. That was an assumption. He rewrote the sentence. Today, for the first time, Brooklyn sounded genuinely tired. Nothing more, nothing less. The correction seemed small, but Aaron knew small corrections often prevented very large mistakes. The following week settled over Charlotte with cold mornings and unusually clear skies. Aaron Phillips noticed the change each morning as he walked from the employee parking lot toward the hospital entrance. The air felt sharper. The trees had surrendered nearly all their leaves. Winter was approaching one quiet day at a time. Inside the hospital, life remained predictably busy. Patients arrived. Doctors hurried between departments. Computers malfunctioned. Networks slowed. Printers jammed. Aaron solved one problem after another without much conversation. He appreciated work that rewarded careful observation instead of loud opinions. Near lunchtime, his supervisor stopped beside his desk again. The external audit team confirmed their schedule. Aaron nodded. When do they arrive? 2 weeks. His supervisor smiled. They are known for asking difficult questions. Aaron returned the smile. Questions aren't usually the problem. No. It's whether the answers can be verified. His supervisor laughed. I knew there was a reason we keep you around. After the conversation ended, Aaron remained thoughtful. Verification. Again. Everywhere he looked, successful organizations relied upon the same principle: independent records, clear timelines, consistent documentation. Without those things, confidence became little more than optimism. That evening, Brooklyn arrived home almost an hour later than usual. She carried no laptop, no folders, only her purse. You look exhausted. I am. Aaron placed dinner on the table. You actually cooked. I figured we both needed something that wasn't takeout. Brooklyn smiled with genuine appreciation. I missed this. During dinner, they talked about ordinary subjects. Their neighbor had planted new shrubs. Aaron's nephew had made the varsity basketball team. A nurse at the hospital had retired after 42 years. Nothing about finance, nothing about consulting firms, nothing about executive meetings. The evening felt strangely peaceful. After dinner, Brooklyn surprised him again. Would you like to watch a movie? Aaron looked almost confused. Sure. They settled onto the living room couch with bowls of popcorn. Halfway through the film, Brooklyn fell asleep against his shoulder. Aaron didn't wake her. Instead, he lowered the television volume and simply sat there. Looking at her sleeping face, he found it difficult to reconcile two different versions of the same woman. One publicly humiliated him in front of executives. The other trusted him enough to fall asleep beside him. Neither version erased the other. Both existed. That complicated everything. Around midnight, Brooklyn woke suddenly. I'm sorry. You needed sleep. She rubbed her eyes. I've been running on caffeine for weeks. Aaron walked her upstairs. As she disappeared into the bedroom, he remained in the hallway for another moment. People under pressure often revealed themselves without intending to. Whether that revelation exposed honesty or desperation remained impossible to predict. Wednesday afternoon, Aaron received an unexpected email from Daniel Brooks. Only 3 words. Call me tonight. Nothing else. Aaron waited until after dinner. Brooklyn had another conference call upstairs. Aaron stepped onto the back porch and dialed. Daniel answered immediately. Everything okay? Yes. Daniel sounded calm. I wanted to ask you something. Aaron listened. Has your hypothetical situation changed? A little. How? Aaron chose each word carefully. The people involved seem more stressed. Daniel paused. That's not unusual. No. Pressure changes behavior, Daniel continued. Sometimes innocent people become anxious because they're overwhelmed. And guilty people? They become anxious because reality is getting closer. Aaron nodded silently. Daniel couldn't see him. So stress itself proves nothing. Exactly. Daniel lowered his voice. Remember something important. Aaron waited. Never confuse emotional behavior with factual evidence. Aaron smiled faintly. I won't. I know. Another pause followed. Finally, Daniel added, one more thing. Go ahead. If you ever find yourself becoming personally involved... Aaron looked toward the upstairs bedroom where Brooklyn's office light still glowed beneath the door. Step back. Aaron understood immediately. Emotion clouded judgment. It always had. After ending the call, Aaron returned to his notebook. Instead of adding business information, he wrote another rule. Emotions explain behavior. They do not prove facts. He underlined it twice. Friday evening, Brooklyn attended another corporate dinner. Aaron declined the invitation. She didn't argue. Instead, she simply nodded. I'll probably be late. I figured. After she left, Aaron remained home. He read a novel for nearly 2 hours before deciding to organize several old storage boxes in the basement. Most contained ordinary household items, holiday decorations, photo albums, camping equipment, old tax documents. Near the back wall, he discovered another unopened cardboard box labeled, simply, Office. Aaron recognized Brooklyn's handwriting. Curious, he opened it. Inside rested notebooks, business magazines, conference programs, and several framed certificates from the early years of her career. Nothing unusual, nothing secret. One notebook slipped onto the floor. Aaron picked it up. It wasn't a journal. It contained handwritten goals from years earlier. Become CFO before 45, build a respected career, provide security for our future family, help Mom retire comfortably. Aaron stopped reading. Those words belonged to a younger Brooklyn, ambitious, hopeful, Not obsessed with status, not dismissive, just determined. He carefully returned the notebook exactly where he had found it. For several minutes, he remained seated on the basement floor. His thoughts drifted toward the early days of their marriage. Brooklyn had once measured success differently. She celebrated promotions because they represented opportunity. Somewhere along the journey, opportunity had quietly transformed into identity. Aaron wondered if she even remembered writing those goals. Saturday morning, he drove to a local farmer's market. Fresh vegetables filled wooden stands. Children chased each other between vendors. Musicians played acoustic guitars beneath colorful tents. The atmosphere contrasted sharply with executive boardrooms and expensive hotel banquets. Aaron enjoyed anonymous places. No one cared what someone earned. No one asked about corporate titles. People discussed apples, honey, bread, weather. While selecting tomatoes, Aaron unexpectedly heard someone call his name. "Mr. Phillips." He turned. Rebecca Lawson approached, carrying 2 canvas shopping bags. "Good morning." "You shop here too?" "Every Saturday," she smiled. "Best bread in the city." Aaron laughed. "I was just thinking the same thing." They walked together for several minutes. Eventually, Rebecca asked, "How's your notebook?" Aaron looked surprised. "You remembered." "I remember disciplined people." Aaron smiled politely. "It keeps growing." "Good." She looked toward a nearby flower stand before speaking again. "The hardest part of any investigation isn't collecting facts." Aaron listened carefully. "It's recognizing when enough facts exist." Aaron remembered Daniel saying something remarkably similar. Rebecca continued, "Young attorneys often believe every question deserves another month of research." "And experienced attorneys?" "They know certainty doesn't require infinite information." Aaron nodded thoughtfully. Before leaving, Rebecca offered one final observation. "Be careful not to let unanswered questions become imagined answers." Aaron thanked her. The sentence stayed with him for the rest of the day. Sunday evening, Brooklyn returned from another weekend planning session. She looked calmer than she had in weeks. "I think the worst is behind us." Aaron looked up from his book. "That's good." She sat across from him. "I've been unfair lately." Aaron remained quiet. She continued, "I've let work consume everything." Aaron appreciated the honesty. "It happens." "No." She shook her head slowly. "It shouldn't." Aaron studied her face. She appeared sincere, not defensive, not rehearsed, simply tired. "I know I embarrassed you." Aaron said nothing. "I can't change that." Silence filled the room. Finally, Aaron answered, "No. I guess I can't." Brooklyn lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry." The apology arrived quietly, without witnesses, without dramatic music, without tears. Aaron believed she meant it. But apologies repaired relationships differently than they repaired facts. One belonged to the heart, the other belonged to evidence. Neither replaced the other. Later that night, after Brooklyn had gone to bed, Aaron opened his notebook once again. He did not write about her apology. He did not write about emotion. Instead, he added one simple observation. Brooklyn acknowledged her behavior without offering excuses. Verified. He closed the notebook. Outside, cold rain began falling against the windows. Inside the quiet house, Aaron sensed that 2 separate stories were moving toward the same destination. One involved a marriage struggling beneath years of ambition. The other involved a pattern of facts that had not yet revealed their full meaning. Sooner or later, he believed those 2 stories would finally become one. Monday arrived with steady rain that covered Charlotte in a dull gray haze. Aaron Phillips reached the hospital before sunrise. He preferred arriving while the corridors remained quiet. Silence helped him think. He unlocked the IT office, poured himself a cup of black coffee, and reviewed the preparation checklist for the external compliance audit scheduled later that week. Every requested file had already been organized, every access log had been verified, every archive had been tested twice. His coworkers occasionally joked that Aaron prepared for routine audits as though federal investigators were coming. Aaron never corrected them. The habit had nothing to do with fear. Preparation simply prevented unnecessary surprises. By mid-morning, one of the hospital administrators stopped by. "I heard you're basically finished." Aaron nodded. "Almost." "You've always been thorough." Aaron smiled politely. "I've learned that fixing mistakes before someone finds them is easier than explaining them afterward." The administrator laughed before walking away. Aaron returned to his monitor, but the conversation lingered in his thoughts. That principle applied equally well outside the hospital. Organizations often worried more about appearances than correction. People unfortunately behaved the same way. Late that afternoon, Brooklyn texted him. "Dinner tonight, just us." Aaron replied immediately. "I'd like that." They met at a quiet Italian restaurant several miles from downtown. No executives, no expensive networking event, no photographers from business magazines, just two people sharing dinner. Brooklyn looked noticeably healthier than she had a week earlier. She even smiled before sitting down. "I forgot how nice normal restaurants are." Aaron looked around. "They're quieter. And cheaper. You never minded expensive places. I minded pretending to enjoy them." Brooklyn laughed. "I probably dragged you to too many." Aaron didn't answer. He simply smiled. After ordering, Brooklyn rested both hands on the table. "I've been thinking." Aaron waited. "When we first got married..." She stopped. "I don't think I appreciated what you gave up." Aaron remained silent. "I always told myself we'd eventually have more time." She looked down at her glass. "Then every promotion demanded another sacrifice." Aaron studied her expression carefully. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She appeared to be remembering something she wished she had noticed years earlier. "I made those choices." She looked back at him. "So did I." Aaron answered quietly. "We both did." She nodded. "But mine affected you." Neither spoke for several moments. Their meals arrived. The conversation drifted toward lighter subjects: favorite vacations, books, their nephews. For nearly 2 hours, they behaved like a couple rediscovering forgotten habits. Driving home, Aaron caught himself wondering whether he had misjudged everything. Perhaps the corporate pressure was finally easing. Perhaps Brooklyn truly intended to rebuild what had been damaged. He wanted to believe that. He genuinely did. Tuesday evening, that hope became more complicated. Aaron arrived home before Brooklyn. While checking the mailbox, he noticed a large overnight courier envelope addressed to her. The sender displayed only a law firm's return address. Nothing unusual. Corporate executives frequently received legal correspondence. Aaron placed the unopened envelope on the kitchen counter exactly where Brooklyn would see it. He never touched it again. Nearly an hour later, she entered the house. She greeted him warmly. Then she noticed the envelope. Everything changed. Her smile disappeared instantly. She picked it up, read the return address, stood perfectly still. Aaron noticed something he had not seen before. Her hand trembled, only slightly, only for a moment. "You okay?" She looked toward him almost too quickly. "Yeah." "You look worried." "It's probably routine." She carried the envelope into her office without opening it in the kitchen. The door closed quietly behind her. Aaron remained where he was. He had no idea what the envelope contained. He refused to speculate. An unopened envelope revealed only one fact. Someone wanted Brooklyn to read something privately. Nothing more. Nothing less. Nearly 45 minutes passed before she emerged. The envelope was gone. Her expression looked carefully controlled. "I'm going to work from home tomorrow." Aaron nodded. "No meetings. I canceled them." "Everything all right?" She hesitated. "Just paperwork." Aaron accepted the answer without further questions. Whether it was complete or incomplete remained impossible to determine. Wednesday morning, Aaron spent his lunch break walking through a nearby public park. The fresh air helped organize his thoughts. He replayed the previous evening carefully. Not emotionally, chronologically. Courier arrives. Brooklyn reacts. Private meeting canceled. Working from home. Every observation remained factual. Every explanation remained unknown. Back at the hospital, Aaron opened his notebook during lunch. He recorded exactly those 4 observations. No assumptions, no theories. After finishing, he closed the notebook immediately. For the first time in weeks, he wondered whether he should stop. Not because he feared what he might discover, because he questioned whether continuing remained fair. Brooklyn had apologized. She appeared exhausted. She seemed to be trying. Aaron found himself confronting an uncomfortable question. Was he documenting a conspiracy, or quietly documenting the collapse of someone under impossible pressure? He couldn't answer. That uncertainty bothered him. Thursday morning, the external audit finally began. 3 auditors arrived shortly after 8. Professional, polite, methodical. Aaron escorted them through server rooms, storage systems, and backup facilities. Every request received immediate documentation. Every question received verifiable answers. By early afternoon, the lead auditor smiled. "I wish every organization prepared like this." Aaron thanked him. The auditor continued. "You know why these reviews usually fail?" Aaron shook his head. "People try to explain missing documentation." He tapped one completed checklist. "You never explained. You simply produced evidence." Aaron appreciated the observation. Facts required remarkably little persuasion. That evening, Daniel Brooks called unexpectedly. "How did the audit go?" "Smooth." "I figured." Daniel laughed softly. "You've always organized information better than most investigators." Aaron leaned back in his chair. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous habit." Aaron smiled. "I might be reaching the point where I don't know whether to keep looking." Daniel became quiet. "What changed?" Aaron described only his own thoughts. Not Brooklyn, not company names, not conversations. Simply uncertainty. Daniel listened patiently. Finally, he answered. "Let me ask you something." Aaron waited. "If you stop today, will the questions disappear?" Aaron considered the thought carefully. "No." "Will the existing facts disappear?" "No," Daniel continued. "Then don't investigate because you're suspicious." Aaron remained silent. "Investigate because reality deserves to be understood." Those words stayed with Aaron long after the call ended. Reality deserved to be understood, not feared, not manipulated, simply understood. Saturday morning, Aaron returned to the public library. Denise greeted him with her usual smile. "Back again." "I seem to have made this part of my routine." "We're glad." Aaron spent nearly 2 hours reviewing archived regional business journals. Nothing significant appeared. No familiar company names, no hidden partnerships, no revised corporate filings. For once, the research produced absolutely nothing. Surprisingly, Aaron welcomed the result. An investigation that found something every day eventually became unbelievable. Real life included ordinary days. Before leaving, Denise approached his table. "You look disappointed." Aaron shook his head. "Actually," he smiled, "I'm relieved." "No discoveries?" "None." She laughed. "Sometimes that's the best kind." Driving home, Aaron realized she was right. Absence of evidence was not evidence of innocence, but neither was it evidence of guilt. It was simply another honest result. That evening, Brooklyn joined him on the back porch as the sun disappeared behind bare autumn trees. Neither carried a phone. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Brooklyn asked quietly, "Do you ever wonder when life became so complicated?" Aaron looked across the darkening yard. "Sometimes. I keep thinking things will slow down." She wrapped both hands around a mug of tea. "But every time one problem ends, another one appears." Aaron listened without interrupting. "I don't even remember what normal feels like anymore." Aaron looked at her carefully. For months, he had watched confident executives, polished speeches, expensive dinners, and carefully managed appearances. Tonight, none of that remained. Only fatigue. Only uncertainty. Only a woman staring into the darkness trying to remember a simpler version of her own life. Aaron didn't know whether those feelings had anything to do with the growing collection of facts inside his notebook. He refused to connect them without evidence. Still, he sensed that both paths were moving steadily toward the same destination. Whatever waited at the end, it was getting closer, with every quiet conversation, every verified document, and every ordinary day that no longer felt ordinary. Monday morning began with an unexpected silence. Brooklyn left the house before sunrise. She usually said goodbye before leaving, even on difficult mornings. This time Aaron woke to an empty bedroom and a brief note resting beside the coffee maker. "Early meeting. Don't wait for dinner. Love, B." He read the note twice before folding it carefully and placing it beside the fruit bowl. The word love caught his attention. It had been absent from her notes for a long time. Whether it reflected genuine change or simply habit, Aaron couldn't know. He refused to assign meaning beyond what was written. At the hospital, the external auditors completed their final interviews. The lead auditor shook Aaron's hand. "Everything checked out?" "I'm glad. You should be proud of your documentation." Aaron smiled politely. "Documentation protects everyone." The auditor nodded in agreement. "Exactly." As they walked toward the exit, the auditor added one final observation. "The organizations that fail audits usually don't begin with criminal intent." Aaron listened. "They begin by convincing themselves one undocumented shortcut won't matter." The comment stayed with Aaron after the auditors departed. One shortcut, then another. Eventually, nobody remembered where the original path had been. Late that afternoon, Aaron visited his sister, Melissa. She had invited him for coffee after work. Her sons were still at basketball practice, leaving the house unusually quiet. Melissa poured 2 mugs before studying her brother carefully. "You look different." Aaron smiled. "I think you've said that before." "I know." She leaned back. "But this time it's different." "How?" "You seem lighter." Aaron considered the question. "I've stopped trying to predict things." Melissa laughed softly. "That's progress. For years I believed understanding meant finding answers quickly. And now, I think understanding means waiting until the answers arrive on their own." Melissa smiled. "I like that version of you." Before Aaron left, she hugged him tightly. "Whatever you're carrying." He waited. Don't carry it alone forever. Driving home, Aaron reflected on her words. He realized he hadn't told anyone the complete story. Not Daniel, not Rebecca, not Melissa. Each person knew only the portion necessary for the conversations they had shared. Perhaps that had protected everyone. Perhaps it had isolated him. He wasn't certain which. Wednesday evening, Brooklyn returned home carrying a cardboard archive box. It was sealed with heavy packing tape. She set it beside her office door. Aaron glanced at it only briefly. Work. Old records. She sounded tired. "We're cleaning storage rooms." "That must be a lot of paperwork." "You have no idea." She laughed weakly. "For some reason, executives never throw anything away." Aaron smiled. I've noticed. Brooklyn looked toward the unopened box. I'll deal with it this weekend. She left it exactly where it stood. Aaron never asked what it contained. Thursday evening, the weather turned unusually cold. Aaron built a fire in the living room fireplace. Brooklyn joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. Neither spoke immediately. The crackling fire filled the silence comfortably. Finally, Brooklyn asked, "Do you remember our first apartment?" Aaron smiled. "The tiny one above the bookstore. The heating barely worked. We wore sweaters indoors," she laughed, "and we thought we were rich because we could finally afford matching furniture." Aaron remembered. The apartment had been barely 700 square feet. The refrigerator rattled every night. The parking lot flooded after heavy rain. Yet they had been happy. Not because life was easy, because they believed they were building something together. "I miss that certainty." Brooklyn's voice was almost a whisper. Aaron looked at her. "What certainty?" "Knowing who I was." She stared into the fireplace. "Everything feels complicated now?" Aaron said nothing. Only she could explain her own feelings. He would not fill in the blanks. Friday afternoon, Aaron received a phone call from Rebecca Lawson. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all." "I wanted to check on you." Aaron appreciated the unexpected kindness. "I'm doing all right. And your notebook?" "It keeps getting smaller." Rebecca sounded amused. "Smaller? I've stopped writing observations that don't change anything." "Good." She paused before continuing. "Most investigations become dangerous when people confuse quantity with quality." Aaron leaned back in his chair. "I've been thinking about that." "Tell me." "I have pages of conversations." "But only a handful actually matter." Rebecca's voice became thoughtful. "You're beginning to edit." "I suppose I am." "That's what experienced investigators eventually learn." Aaron waited. Finding information is easy. Understanding which information deserves attention is the difficult part. After ending the call, Aaron opened his notebook during his lunch break. He flipped through nearly 6 months of carefully written observations. Many entries no longer mattered. Restaurant conversations, meeting schedules, casual remarks, small inconsistencies. Each had seemed significant when recorded. Viewed together, most had become background noise. Aaron removed several pages from the notebook. Not because they had been inaccurate, because they no longer contributed to understanding reality. When he finished, the notebook felt noticeably thinner. Surprisingly, it also felt more truthful. Saturday morning, Brooklyn finally opened the archive box she had brought home. Aaron was reading in the dining room while she worked quietly in the nearby office. He heard folders sliding across the desk, occasional sighs, paper being sorted into separate stacks. Nothing unusual. Around noon, she appeared in the doorway holding a single photograph. "Look what I found." Aaron accepted it. The photograph showed a corporate charity event from nearly 10 years earlier. Brooklyn stood near the center. Jason Mercer appeared several feet away, speaking with another executive. Heather Collins stood in the background beside a registration table. Everyone looked younger. Aaron examined the picture carefully. Not for evidence, for memory. Brooklyn laughed. "I forgot that dress." "You liked it." "I thought I looked sophisticated." "You did." She smiled. "I was terrified." Aaron looked up. "You never seemed terrified." "I was good at hiding it." She took the photograph back. "I wanted everyone to think I belonged." Aaron watched her return to the office. The photograph remained only a photograph. It proved nothing. People attended public events together every day. Still, Aaron found the timing interesting. The picture had been taken years before many of the company names had first appeared in his notebook. That afternoon, Brooklyn carried another stack of papers toward the recycling bin. One folder slipped onto the hardwood floor. Several documents scattered. Aaron immediately stood to help. Together, they gathered the pages. One document briefly caught his eye. The heading read, Vendor Transition Timeline. Before he could accidentally read anything else, Aaron handed the papers back exactly as they had fallen. "Thanks." "No problem," Brooklyn smiled gratefully. "I've looked at paperwork for so many hours that everything is starting to blur together." "I understand." She carried the folder away. Aaron returned to his chair. He hadn't intentionally read beyond the heading. He didn't try to remember any additional details. He reminded himself that accidental glimpses could never replace verified information. Sunday evening, Aaron sat alone on the back porch after sunset. The air had grown cold enough that his breath appeared faintly in front of him. He brought his notebook outside one final time. He reread the earliest pages. The first entries carried obvious emotional weight. His handwriting had been sharper, the sentences shorter, the observations more urgent. Gradually, over the following months, the writing changed. It became calmer, more disciplined, more precise. Aaron realized something unexpected. The notebook documented more than facts. It documented his own transformation. The man who began writing after Brooklyn threw a glass in front of her friends had wanted answers immediately. The man closing the notebook now understood that truth moved at its own pace. He added only one final sentence beneath the latest entry. Patience has become evidence of its own. He considered the wording, then shook his head. That wasn't quite right. Patience itself proved nothing. He crossed out the sentence. After a moment, he wrote another. Patience allows evidence to appear. This time he left the words untouched. He closed the notebook and listened to the quiet neighborhood around him. Inside the house, Brooklyn was speaking softly during another phone call. Aaron couldn't hear the conversation. He made no effort to. For the first time since the investigation had begun, he felt no temptation to move closer. If the truth mattered, it would eventually reveal itself without him chasing every whisper. That realization brought an unexpected sense of peace. He didn't know how much longer the journey would last. He only knew he was no longer walking it in a hurry. The first Monday of December arrived with a bright blue sky and temperatures cold enough to leave frost across neighborhood lawns. Aaron Phillips stood at the kitchen window while his coffee brewed. Outside, a delivery truck stopped briefly at a nearby house before continuing down the street. Ordinary routines unfolded exactly as they always had. Children waited for school buses. Neighbors walked their dogs. Garbage trucks made their weekly rounds. The normal rhythm of everyday life reminded Aaron how little most people ever knew about one another. Everyone carried private concerns behind familiar routines. Brooklyn came downstairs, wearing a charcoal business suit and carrying her laptop. "You've been awake a while." "I couldn't sleep." She poured herself coffee. "Thinking?" "A little." She smiled faintly. "You always think in the mornings." Aaron returned the smile. "And you always rush." She looked at her watch. "I should probably leave." Before walking toward the front door, she stopped unexpectedly. "I'll be home early tonight." "You have dinner plans?" "I was hoping we could cook together." Aaron nodded. "I'd like that." She left with a quick kiss on his cheek. The front door closed quietly behind her. Aaron stood in the silent kitchen for another minute before leaving for the hospital. Throughout the morning, he replaced aging desktop computers in one administrative department. The work required patience but little conversation. By lunchtime, he had completed every installation without interruption. One of the nurses watched him reconnect a workstation. "You make that look easy." Aaron smiled. "It only looks easy because most of the work happens before anyone notices." She laughed. "Sounds like life." Aaron considered the comment. Many important things happened long before anyone recognized their significance. Careful preparation, patient observation, trust, even betrayal. Their consequences often appeared much later than their beginnings. After work, Aaron stopped at a neighborhood grocery store. Brooklyn had texted a short shopping list: fresh basil, tomatoes, Parmesan cheese, bread. As he waited in the checkout line, he noticed an elderly couple quietly debating which pasta sauce to buy. The husband reached for one jar. His wife shook her head. No? This one? He smiled and placed the first jar back. The entire exchange lasted less than 20 seconds. It made Aaron smile. Small disagreements did not necessarily signal broken relationships. Sometimes they simply reflected ordinary life. Brooklyn arrived home shortly after 6. True to her word, she had left work early. They cooked dinner together. She chopped vegetables while Aaron prepared the sauce. For nearly an hour, the conversation never touched work. Instead, they talked about recipes they had learned from Aaron's mother. Brooklyn admitted she had forgotten how relaxing cooking could feel. No conference calls. No presentations. No hotel ballrooms. Aaron stirred the sauce. Just onions. She laughed. And garlic. Dangerous combination. Especially before board meetings. Dinner turned out surprisingly well. After washing the dishes together, they settled in the living room. Brooklyn picked up a photo album from the shelf. I haven't looked through these in years. Aaron joined her. The album contained photographs from their honeymoon in Maine. Ocean cliffs, small fishing villages, lighthouses, long walks beneath cloudy skies. Brooklyn stopped at one picture. Aaron stood beside an old wooden pier, laughing at something outside the frame. What were you laughing at? Aaron studied the photograph. I don't remember. You laughed a lot back then. He looked at her. So did you. She quietly closed the album. Tuesday afternoon, Aaron received a message from Daniel Brooks. Coffee, same place. Tomorrow, Aaron replied with a simple yes. The following afternoon, they met at the same small cafe they had visited months earlier. Nothing about Daniel suggested urgency. He ordered black coffee. Aaron chose tea. Daniel smiled. You look different. Aaron laughed. Melissa said the same thing. She's observant. Daniel stirred his coffee. So, how are things? Aaron answered honestly. Quieter. And your investigation? Aaron paused before answering. I don't know if that's the right word anymore. Daniel looked interested. What would you call it? A process. Daniel nodded approvingly. Better. Aaron explained how he had removed pages from his notebook that no longer mattered. Daniel seemed genuinely pleased. That's harder than collecting information. It was. You know why? Aaron shook his head. Daniel leaned forward. Because people become emotionally attached to facts that once felt important. Aaron thought about the discarded pages. Restaurant reservations, conference schedules, casual conversations. They had once seemed essential. Now they appeared insignificant. Daniel continued. A good investigator doesn't defend yesterday's theories. He follows today's evidence. Aaron smiled. I've heard something similar before. From Rebecca. Aaron laughed. Actually, yes. Daniel shook his head. She's smart. So are you. We simply survived enough mistakes. As they prepared to leave, Daniel asked one final question. If everything ended tomorrow, Aaron waited. Would you regret beginning this? Aaron considered the answer carefully. No. Why? Because I learned how to separate facts from fear. Daniel smiled. Then whatever happens next was worth the journey. Thursday evening, another unexpected package arrived. This time it was addressed to Aaron. The return address belonged to the hospital's Human Resources Department. Inside, he found a formal letter. His annual performance review. Overall evaluation exceeds expectations. Attached was a handwritten note from his supervisor. Thank you for making everyone else's work easier. Simple words. Nothing dramatic. Yet Aaron found himself unexpectedly moved. Recognition had never been particularly important to him. Still, it felt good to know quiet work had been noticed. Brooklyn read the note over his shoulder. "You deserve this." Aaron folded the letter carefully. "It's nice." "No." She looked directly at him. "It's overdue." He thanked her. Friday morning snow flurries drifted briefly across the city before disappearing. By afternoon, the streets were dry again. Aaron spent lunch reading technical articles about cybersecurity trends. Old habits returned whenever he had free time. He still enjoyed understanding how complicated systems worked, whether computer networks or organizations' patterns mattered. Not because patterns proved conclusions, because they suggested where careful questions belonged. Late that afternoon, Nathan Caldwell's name unexpectedly appeared again. Aaron wasn't searching for it. A professional newsletter listed executives scheduled to speak at an upcoming regional governance conference. Nathan would moderate one panel discussion, nothing more. Aaron read the announcement twice, then closed the web page. The conference announcement itself established only one fact: Nathan remained professionally active. Aaron deliberately chose not to investigate further. If the conference later became relevant, public records would still exist. There was no urgency. Saturday morning, Aaron visited the public library again. Denise greeted him warmly. "You disappeared for a couple of weeks." "I was trying something." "What?" "Not researching." She laughed. "And how did that work?" "Better than expected." Denise nodded thoughtfully. "People think librarians love endless research." "Don't you?" "We love useful research." She pointed toward the reading tables. "Searching without purpose eventually becomes another form of getting lost." Aaron appreciated the observation. He spent only 45 minutes reviewing updated public corporate filings. Nothing significant had changed. No ownership transfers. No new registrations. No amended disclosures involving the companies already recorded in his notebook. He left earlier than usual. Driving home, Aaron realized he no longer measured progress by the number of discoveries. Sometimes confirming stability carried equal value. Sunday afternoon, Brooklyn suggested taking a walk through a nearby park. Most trees stood completely bare now. Children threw handfuls of fallen leaves into the air. Families pushed strollers along winding paths. Aaron and Brooklyn walked slowly beside a small lake. After several quiet minutes, Brooklyn stopped near the water. "I've been thinking about next year." Aaron waited. "I want to take a real vacation." "We can." "I mean, without checking email." Aaron smiled. "That would be a first." She laughed softly. "It probably would." A flock of geese crossed the lake. Neither spoke until they disappeared beyond the trees. Finally, Brooklyn looked toward him. "I don't know what next year will bring." Aaron nodded. "Neither do I." "But," she hesitated, "I'd like us to face it together." Aaron heard the sincerity in her voice. He also understood something important. Sincerity and truth were not enemies. Neither automatically guaranteed the other. One belonged to intention, the other belonged to reality. He hoped they would eventually meet. As they walked home beneath the fading afternoon light, Aaron realized something had quietly changed inside him. Months earlier, he had believed every answer waited just beyond the next document, the next conversation, or the next discovery. Now he understood that some truths arrived only after people had revealed themselves through ordinary days, ordinary choices, and ordinary moments. The investigation was no longer rushing toward a conclusion. Instead, the conclusion seemed to be walking calmly toward him. December settled quietly over Charlotte. Holiday decorations gradually appeared across neighborhoods, office buildings, and storefronts. The hospital where Aaron Phillips worked placed a decorated evergreen in the main lobby. Volunteers wrapped handrails with green garlands. Small paper snowflakes appeared on children's ward windows. The atmosphere felt lighter than it had only a few weeks earlier. Aaron appreciated the change. He had always believed ordinary kindness required less effort than most people imagined. On Tuesday morning, he helped a new employee recover several accidentally deleted project folders. The young technician looked visibly relieved. "I thought I'd ruined everything." Aaron smiled. "You didn't. I should have made a backup. You'll probably never forget again." The technician laughed nervously. "No, I definitely won't." Aaron returned to his office after restoring the files. Mistakes became valuable only if people learned from them. Otherwise, they simply repeated themselves. Later that afternoon, Brooklyn sent another message. "Board dinner tonight. Don't wait up." Aaron read the message without disappointment. Board dinners had become routine long ago. He replied with a simple "drive safely." She answered with a heart emoji. Nothing more. That evening, Aaron prepared dinner for himself before sitting beside the living room fireplace with a technical book. Around 9:30, his phone buzzed. It was Melissa. "Are you busy?" "No. I was wrapping Christmas presents." Aaron smiled. "Already? My boys have excellent hearing." "They do. If I wait until next week, they'll discover everything." Aaron laughed. They spoke for nearly 30 minutes. Mostly about family, holiday traditions, their parents, old childhood memories. Before ending the call, Melissa hesitated. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "How are things with Brooklyn?" Aaron answered carefully. "Better?" "Really? I think we're talking more." Melissa sounded relieved. "I'm glad." "So am I." He meant it. Regardless of everything still unresolved, they were speaking honestly more often than they had in years. That mattered. Wednesday morning, Aaron received an email from Rebecca Lawson. No legal discussion. Only a holiday greeting sent to several former clients. At the bottom, she had added one handwritten sentence specifically for him. "Hope you're finding more clarity than conflict." Aaron smiled. He typed a brief reply, thanking her. Then he closed the message. Sometimes encouragement arrived without requiring explanation. Thursday afternoon, Aaron attended a cybersecurity webinar hosted by a professional association. The speaker discussed risk management. One sentence caught Aaron's attention immediately. Risk increases when organizations stop asking uncomfortable questions. Aaron wrote the sentence in a separate notebook he used for professional ideas. Not his investigation notebook, his work notebook. Even there, the observation seemed applicable far beyond computer systems, organizations, friendships, marriages. Ignoring difficult questions rarely made them disappear. It merely postponed the answers. When Aaron arrived home that evening, Brooklyn was already there. She stood in the kitchen reading something on her tablet. "You beat me home." "I escaped early." She smiled. "I brought dessert." She pointed toward a bakery box resting on the counter. Inside were 2 slices of cheesecake. Aaron laughed. "You remembered. You always order cheesecake." "I do. And I almost never notice." She looked at him. "I'm trying to notice." Aaron appreciated the effort. Small observations often carried greater weight than dramatic promises. After dinner, they watched an old Christmas movie together. Halfway through, Brooklyn's phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen, then pressed the power button without reading further. Aaron noticed the movement. He said nothing. A few minutes later, the phone vibrated again. She ignored it once more. For the remainder of the movie, the phone stayed untouched on the coffee table. Aaron recorded nothing. A person choosing not to answer a call established no meaningful conclusion. Only that the call had gone unanswered. Friday morning, the hospital cafeteria hosted its annual employee breakfast. Departments gathered before work. Coffee, pastries, holiday music. Aaron usually avoided large gatherings. This year, one of the administrators insisted he attend. During the breakfast, the hospital director thanked several employees for their work throughout the year. Aaron's name appeared unexpectedly. The applause embarrassed him. He accepted the certificate with a polite smile before returning to his table as quickly as possible. One coworker leaned toward him. "You hate being the center of attention." Aaron laughed. "Is it that obvious? You looked like you wanted the floor to disappear." "I probably did." The coworker smiled. "Still, you earned it." Aaron thanked him quietly. Recognition remained uncomfortable, but appreciation felt genuine. Late Friday afternoon, Brooklyn called unexpectedly. "I'm running behind." "No problem. I'll probably work another hour." "Drive carefully." There was a pause. "Aaron?" "Yes." "Thanks." "For what?" "For never making work harder than it already is." Aaron looked through his office window toward the hospital parking lot. "I've never wanted to compete with your work." "I know." Her voice sounded softer than usual. "I just wanted you to know I noticed." The call ended. Aaron remained seated for another minute. He wondered how many years had passed without either of them expressing such simple gratitude. Saturday morning arrived with light snow, only enough to dust rooftops and sidewalks. Aaron decided to visit the library one last time before Christmas. Denise greeted him with mock surprise. "I was beginning to think you'd abandoned us." "I've been practicing moderation." An excellent habit. Aaron spent nearly an hour reviewing updated business registrations. Again, nothing significant had changed. Before leaving, Denise handed him a folded sheet of paper. "Community holiday concert. Our library sponsors it every year." Aaron looked at the flyer. "Are you volunteering?" "Every year." "You should come." "I'll ask Brooklyn." "We'd love to see both of you." Aaron thanked her before placing the flyer carefully inside his coat pocket. On the drive home, he reflected on how unusual the past several months had become. He had started visiting the library, searching for evidence. Now he found himself looking forward to conversations with the librarian. Life quietly rearranged priorities without asking permission. Sunday afternoon, Brooklyn agreed to attend the concert. "I'm actually free that evening." "That's rare." "I know." The community center overflowed with families. Children carried handmade ornaments. Local musicians performed holiday songs. Nothing extravagant. Nothing expensive. Simply neighbors gathering together. Aaron and Brooklyn sat near the back. Halfway through the performance, Denise noticed them. She waved enthusiastically before returning to help organize the choir. Brooklyn smiled. "I like her." "So do I." "She seems peaceful." Aaron nodded. "She is." After the concert ended, they walked slowly toward the parking lot beneath strings of white lights. Brooklyn slipped her hand into Aaron's. "I forgot places like this existed." "You've been busy." "I've been distracted." She corrected herself almost immediately. "No. That's not the right word." Aaron waited. "I've been consumed." The distinction mattered. Distraction suggested temporary attention. Consumption suggested something far deeper. Aaron accepted only the words she had actually chosen, nothing beyond them. As they reached the car, Brooklyn stopped. "There was a time." She looked back toward the brightly lit community center. "When I believed success meant always being invited into bigger rooms." Aaron listened. "I'm beginning to wonder whether I walked out of the rooms that actually mattered." Aaron felt the weight of her statement. It wasn't an admission of wrongdoing. It wasn't an explanation. It wasn't evidence. It was simply a reflection about priorities. He would not transform it into anything else. Driving home through gently falling snow, Aaron realized another quiet truth about himself. Months earlier, he would have spent the evening searching for hidden meanings inside every sentence Brooklyn spoke. Now, he simply listened. People deserved the chance to finish revealing themselves, before others decided what their words meant. When they arrived home, Aaron opened his investigation notebook. He stared at the empty page for several moments. Then he wrote only one sentence. People sometimes reveal change long before they reveal its cause. He read the sentence carefully. Unlike earlier months, it contained no assumption about Brooklyn. It described only something he had observed repeatedly throughout life. Satisfied, he closed the notebook. Outside, fresh snow continued covering the neighborhood with remarkable patience. Every rooftop, every sidewalk, every tree branch, slowly, quietly, without rushing. Aaron couldn't help noticing that truth often arrived the same way. Christmas week arrived with a slower rhythm than the rest of the year. The hospital remained open, but administrative offices operated with reduced staff. Hallways that normally echoed with hurried conversations felt noticeably quieter. Aaron Phillips appreciated the change. Silence had never made him uncomfortable. It created room for observation. On Monday morning, he walked through the information technology department carrying a box of replacement network switches. One of the senior physicians stopped him near the elevator. "Merry Christmas, Aaron." "Merry Christmas, Doctor." "I heard about your performance review." Aaron looked slightly embarrassed. "News travels fast." "It does around here." The physician smiled. "You've been solving problems for years." "I just wanted to say thank you." Aaron accepted the compliment with his usual modest nod. "You're welcome." As the elevator doors closed, he reflected on how strange recognition could feel. Years earlier, he had measured success by difficult technical problems solved. Now he found himself valuing something simpler. Being dependable. Dependability rarely attracted attention until it disappeared. Tuesday evening, Brooklyn arrived home carrying 2 wrapped gifts. She placed them beneath the Christmas tree without saying anything. Aaron noticed one package was considerably larger than the other. He smiled. "I thought we agreed to keep gifts simple." "We did." She removed her coat. "I cheated a little." Aaron laughed softly. "I suspected as much." Brooklyn walked into the kitchen before speaking again. I've been thinking about something." Aaron waited. "When all this holiday chaos is over." She searched for the right words. "I'd like us to have dinner with Melissa and the boys." Aaron looked surprised. "It's been a while." "Too long." "I think they'd like that." "I hope so." There was a quiet sincerity in her voice that Aaron recognized immediately. She wasn't making a promise. She was expressing an intention. He carefully distinguished the difference. Intentions mattered. Actions mattered more. Wednesday afternoon, Aaron received another unexpected phone call from Daniel Brooks. "I'm nearby." "You working?" "Actually," Daniel laughed. "My wife sent me to finish Christmas shopping." Aaron smiled. "So you're on an official assignment." "The most dangerous kind." Aaron laughed. They agreed to meet briefly at a nearby coffee shop. Daniel carried 2 shopping bags when he arrived. "You survived?" "Barely." They ordered coffee before finding a quiet corner table. Daniel leaned back. "So, no investigations today." "I'm relieved." "I wanted to ask something else." Aaron nodded. Daniel stirred his coffee slowly. "When this started?" "Yes." "You were trying to prove something." "I was." "What are you trying to do now?" Aaron took his time answering. "I think I'm trying to understand." Daniel smiled. "That's a very different objective." "It feels different." "It is." Daniel folded his hands together. "Proving usually narrows your vision. And understanding. It forces you to keep your eyes open." Aaron appreciated the distinction. For several months, he had felt exactly that change without finding words to describe it. Daniel had supplied them. Before leaving, Daniel reached into one of his shopping bags. "Merry Christmas." He handed Aaron a small, wrapped package. "You didn't have to do that." "I know." Aaron opened it only after Daniel insisted. Inside was a leather notebook. smaller than the one Aaron currently carried. Inside the front cover, Daniel had written only one sentence. Questions deserve patience. Aaron looked up. Thank you. Daniel shrugged. I figured the old notebook was getting full. Aaron smiled. It is. Thursday evening, Aaron and Brooklyn attended Christmas Eve service at the small church they had occasionally visited years earlier. The sanctuary glowed with candlelight. Families filled nearly every pew. Children whispered excitedly while waiting for the service to begin. Neither Aaron nor Brooklyn spoke very much. They simply sat together, listening. During one reading, the pastor spoke about restoration, not perfection, not erasing mistakes. Restoration. Aaron found himself thinking carefully about the distinction. Perfection demanded that nothing ever break. Restoration accepted that broken things could still possess value. After the service ended, people slowly gathered outside beneath clear winter skies. Brooklyn slipped her arm through Aaron's. I forgot how peaceful this feels. Aaron nodded. So did I. Friday morning brought Christmas Day. Sunlight streamed through the living room windows. Aaron woke first and quietly prepared coffee before turning on the tree lights. Brooklyn joined him a few minutes later, wearing thick wool socks and an oversized sweater. Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! They exchanged gifts after breakfast. Aaron opened Brooklyn's present first. Inside the carefully wrapped box rested a vintage mechanical watch. Its design resembled watches from the 1960s. Aaron turned it over carefully. The back contained a small engraving. For every hour you've given us. He stared at the words for several seconds. Brooklyn watched silently. I know you've always been generous with your time. She smiled nervously. I haven't always appreciated that. Aaron looked at her. It's beautiful. I'm glad. Then Brooklyn opened Aaron's gift. Inside, she found a leather-bound journal with blank pages. She looked puzzled at first. Aaron smiled. I thought you might like having something that belongs only to you. No work. No work. No schedules, no schedules. No meetings. Just whatever you want to write. Brooklyn gently touched the cover. I haven't kept a journal since college. Maybe it's time again. She nodded thoughtfully. Maybe it is. The remainder of Christmas Day passed quietly. Melissa and her family visited in the afternoon. The nephews filled the house with energy. Board games appeared. Wrapping paper accumulated across the living room floor. Laughter replaced silence. Aaron noticed Brooklyn spending far more time talking with Melissa than she had in years. He observed, nothing more. Saturday morning, the house returned to its normal calm. Brooklyn remained asleep later than usual. Aaron stepped outside with a cup of coffee. Fresh snow from earlier in the week still covered shaded portions of the yard. Everything appeared still. His phone vibrated. An email notification, not from Daniel, not from Rebecca, not from anyone he recognized. The subject line read, Public Notice of Corporate Filing. Aaron frowned slightly. He had subscribed months earlier to automatic notifications involving several corporate entities that had appeared during his research. Most updates proved routine, administrative corrections, annual renewals, address confirmations. He opened the email. One company name immediately stood out, Blue Horizon Holdings. Aaron read the filing summary carefully. A change had been recorded. Not ownership, not dissolution, not litigation. A newly appointed corporate secretary, public information, perfectly legal. The name itself meant nothing to Aaron. He had never encountered it before. He downloaded the filing and saved it without comment. No conclusions, only one verified fact. A corporate officer had changed. Nothing more. Brooklyn stepped onto the back porch carrying her own coffee. Merry day after Christmas, Aaron smiled. Merry day after Christmas? She noticed the thoughtful expression on his face. Work. Aaron considered the question. No. Just reading. What kind of reading? Public records. She nodded naturally, neither curious nor defensive. She simply accepted the answer. After breakfast, Aaron drove alone to the public library. Although operating on reduced holiday hours, it remained open. Denise welcomed him with her usual warm smile. "I knew I'd see you before New Year's." Aaron laughed. "You know me too well." She noticed the printed filing in his hand. "Something new?" "A public corporate update." "Important," Aaron answered honestly. "I don't know yet." Denise nodded approvingly. "The best answer." Aaron sat at his familiar reading table and examined the filing again. Only 4 pages. Entirely procedural. No hidden attachments. No unusual language. Still, one detail quietly attracted his attention. The effective date. The appointment had taken effect 3 days before Brooklyn had spoken about feeling consumed by work. Aaron stared at the calendar for several moments. Timing alone proved nothing. Coincidences existed. Business transitions happened every day. Even so, Aaron carefully copied one sentence into Daniel's new notebook. Blue Horizon Holdings appointed a new corporate secretary effective December 22nd. Public filing verified. He stopped writing. Nothing else belonged beneath the entry. No speculation. No arrows. No theories. Only a documented fact. As he closed the notebook, Aaron felt something he had not experienced for weeks. Not excitement, not fear, simple curiosity. The investigation had finally produced a genuinely new piece of verified information. Small, ordinary, public, yet undeniably different from everything that had come before. For the first time in many weeks, the story had taken one quiet step forward. The final Monday of the year began with cold rain instead of snow. Gray clouds stretched across Charlotte, turning sunrise into a slow transition from darkness to muted daylight. Aaron Phillips arrived at the hospital 20 minutes early. The parking lot remained unusually empty. Many employees had taken vacation days between Christmas and New Year's. Inside the information technology office, the reduced staff created an atmosphere that felt almost peaceful. Aaron placed his backpack beside his desk before opening Daniel's leather notebook. The previous Saturday's entry remained the last sentence written. Blue Horizon Holdings appointed a new corporate secretary, effective December 22nd. Public filing verified. He read the line once, then closed the notebook. No new information had appeared overnight. There was nothing else to record. At 9 o'clock, his supervisor stopped by. "Morning?" "Morning. You have time this afternoon?" "For what?" "We're reviewing next year's equipment replacement schedule." Aaron nodded. "I'll be there." The supervisor smiled. "You always say yes before asking how much work it is." Aaron laughed quietly. "I suppose I do." "It's one of your strengths." Aaron watched him leave. Dependability often began with simple habits. Throughout the morning, he helped reorganize archived network documentation. The project lacked excitement. It also lacked confusion. Old hardware inventories, warranty expiration dates, maintenance records, everything belonged somewhere. Finding the proper place required patience rather than brilliance. Aaron enjoyed that kind of work. At lunch, he sat alone near a window overlooking the employee parking garage. Rain continued falling steadily. His phone vibrated. A message from Melissa. "Dinner Friday, everyone's coming." Aaron smiled before replying. Wouldn't miss it. A few moments later, another message arrived. This one from Brooklyn. "Late meeting. Home around 7. Aaron answered with a thumbs-up emoji. Nothing else required saying. That evening, Brooklyn arrived exactly when she had promised. She carried a folder beneath one arm and looked tired. "You look exhausted." "I feel exhausted." She loosened her scarf before dropping gently onto the living room sofa. Aaron brought her a cup of tea. She accepted it with a grateful smile. "Thank you." They sat quietly for several minutes. Finally, Brooklyn spoke. "I canceled 2 meetings today." Aaron looked toward her. "You almost never do that." "I know." "What changed?" She considered the question carefully. "I realized everyone around me expected immediate answers. And I don't think every answer needs to be immediate." Aaron recognized the significance of the statement, not because it proved anything, because it reflected a change in behavior, observable, practical, real. Tuesday morning, Aaron received another automatic notification regarding Blue Horizon Holdings. He opened the email expecting another routine filing. Instead, he found something different, a notice of correction. The company had amended the previous filing to correct the mailing address of the newly appointed corporate secretary. Nothing else changed. Aaron downloaded both versions. He compared them line by line. Every paragraph remained identical except one: the mailing address. He highlighted the correction, then opened an online map. The revised address belonged to a commercial office building on the opposite side of Charlotte. Shared office suites, several small consulting businesses, an accounting firm, a legal document service. Nothing unusual. He closed the browser. The corrected address established only another verified fact. Administrative information had been amended. No more, no less. That evening, Aaron mentioned none of it to Brooklyn. He had long ago decided that discussing incomplete observations accomplished little. Wednesday afternoon, he visited the public library during his lunch break. Denise noticed him immediately. "You've become predictable." Aaron smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It is." He showed her the 2 public filings. "Administrative correction." She adjusted her reading glasses. "Looks that way." "I thought so." She handed the papers back. "Are you disappointed?" Aaron considered the question. "Not really." "Why not?" "Because uncertainty doesn't automatically become significance." Denise smiled. "I like that." "So do I." Before leaving, Aaron browsed several shelves unrelated to corporate law, travel, history, photography. He checked out a book about America's national parks. Research had gradually stopped consuming every visit. That realization pleased him. Thursday morning, Daniel called unexpectedly. "I've got 15 minutes." "So do I." They met outside the courthouse rather than at their usual coffee shop. Daniel wore a heavy winter coat. "You've been busy." "Mostly paperwork." Daniel laughed. "That's 90% of investigations." Aaron showed him copies of the amended filing. Daniel examined them without speaking. Finally, he returned the pages. "Interesting. But ordinary." Aaron nodded. "That's how it looked to me." Daniel pointed toward the courthouse behind them. "Every day, thousands of perfectly legal documents get filed in that building." "I know." "The challenge isn't finding paperwork. It's recognizing which paperwork eventually matters." Aaron folded the documents carefully. "So I wait." "You verify." Daniel corrected him gently. "Waiting suggests doing nothing." "Verification is work." Aaron appreciated the distinction. As they prepared to leave, Daniel paused. "One more thing." Aaron waited. "Have you noticed your notebook changing?" Aaron looked puzzled. "What do you mean? You used to fill pages." "Now you write 1 sentence." Aaron smiled. "I hadn't noticed." Daniel nodded. "That tells me something." "What?" "You're becoming more selective." Aaron reflected on the observation during the drive back to work. It was true. Earlier entries overflowed with possibilities. Recent entries contained only established facts. Perhaps that represented progress. Perhaps experience naturally reduced unnecessary words. Friday evening, Aaron and Brooklyn visited Melissa's house for dinner. The nephews raced through the living room wearing paper crowns left over from Christmas crackers. Brooklyn laughed more freely than Aaron had seen in months. Melissa quietly joined Aaron in the kitchen while everyone else prepared dessert. She seems happier. Aaron looked toward the dining room. I think she might be. Melissa lowered her voice. And you, Aaron answered honestly. I'm calmer. Melissa smiled. That's different. It is. She squeezed his shoulder gently. I'm glad. After dinner, the family gathered around the fireplace. One nephew asked everyone to describe the best moment of the year. Answers varied: learning to ride a bicycle, finishing school, getting promoted, taking a camping trip. When it became Aaron's turn, he paused. My best moment. Everyone waited. Why? Was realizing I didn't need immediate answers to every question. The room fell quiet for a moment. The children didn't fully understand. The adults seemed to. Brooklyn looked at him thoughtfully. She said nothing. Saturday morning, Aaron returned to the library one final time before New Year's Eve. Denise waved from behind the circulation desk. Last visit of the year. I think so. He spent less than 30 minutes reviewing newly available public records. No additional filings. No new registrations. No ownership changes. The investigation remained exactly where it had ended the previous weekend. He packed his notebook. Before leaving, Denise stopped him. Can I ask something personal? You can. Do you think you'll ever stop searching? Aaron considered the question longer than she expected. I think I'll stop when searching no longer produces meaningful questions. She smiled. That's a librarian's answer. He laughed. I've been spending too much time here. Driving home through clear winter sunshine, Aaron reflected on the year now ending. He had begun with humiliation, continued through uncertainty, learned discipline, abandoned assumptions, collected verified facts, discarded weak ones. Some questions remained unanswered. Others had quietly disappeared because they no longer deserved attention. Late that evening, Brooklyn joined him on the back porch. Fireworks occasionally echoed from distant neighborhoods celebrating early. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. What are you thinking about? Aaron looked across the quiet street. I'm thinking this year taught me something. What? Patience isn't the absence of action. She looked toward him. What is it then? Aaron smiled faintly. It's choosing not to act before the evidence deserves it. Brooklyn nodded slowly. Neither of them spoke again for several minutes. The neighborhood remained peaceful beneath the cold December sky. Aaron realized the investigation had entered a different stage. The next meaningful development would not come from searching harder. It would come from recognizing the importance of the next verified fact whenever it finally appeared. Until then, patience itself had become part of the investigation. Every difficult season in life leaves us with a choice. We can allow pain to make us bitter, or we can allow it to make us wiser. Aaron's journey reminds us that true strength is not found in anger, revenge, or proving someone wrong. It is found in patience, integrity, and the courage to face reality without letting fear or assumptions control our decisions. The loudest voices are not always the most truthful, and the quickest answers are not always the right ones. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is to slow down, observe carefully, and let the truth reveal itself in its own time. Life has a way of testing our character when we feel misunderstood, disrespected, or hurt. In those moments, we discover who we really are. We cannot control how others treat us, but we can always choose how we respond. Dignity is never lost because someone humiliates us. It is only lost when we abandon our own values. The people who emerge strongest from life's hardest battles are often those who refuse to sacrifice honesty, kindness, and self-respect, even when no one is watching. If this story touched your heart, remember this: never rush to judge, never stop seeking the truth, and never underestimate the quiet power of patience. Sometimes the greatest victories are not the ones the world applauds, but the ones that allow you to look in the mirror with peace. If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what lesson impacted you the most. And if you enjoy meaningful stories about resilience, justice, and personal growth, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next inspiring story. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.